Part 156. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1554. But what the God Emperors don't know is that Jia Yan is now definitely unable to borrow the subspace around him, but what the God Emperors have destroyed is only the shallow subspace. What Jia Yan is borrowing is the power of deep subspace. At such a depth, how can their crappy shrimp technology and equipment be disrupted? So he suddenly used a deeper subspace power distortion. This kind of distortion power was a bit difficult for even Jia Yan, but he still used it. Even at this moment, when Jia Yan used this power, he discovered a unique feeling of this power, that is, he actually felt that this direction was the direction for his future progress in this ability. As long as he uses this increasingly profound power of combat ripples, his control over this ability will become stronger and stronger, and his combat effectiveness will also become stronger due to the power of this ripple. Gotta get stronger. The several God Emperor creatures that came were suddenly affected by the power of the ripples caused by Jia Yan's sudden explosion, and they suddenly felt that it was difficult to move their bodies. The God Emperors coming from behind saw these God Emperor creatures as if they had suddenly fallen into a quagmire in some space and were unable to move at all. But they couldn't see at all how Jia Yan used his skills. The deep levels of the subspace were like another dimension to the creatures in this great domain of gods, although they all knew that this kind of space existed. It exists, but they don't know that this kind of space can really be used by people. Not to mention, Jia Yan is no longer as simple as using it, he directly seems to be integrated with this space. Why can't my body move? Me too, damn it, this is Jia Yan's trick. But seeing as he doesn't seem to be able to move easily, we can still move a little bit, and we can go over together and kill him. Several God Emperor level beings certainly didn't think that Jia Yan could really deal with the God Emperors on their side regarding Jia Yan's strength. But they had to admit that Jia Yan's method of controlling others was really extremely effective, making them unable to move one by one, and then becoming very difficult to attack under Jia Yan's ripple power. Humph, it's so funny that he came up with such a skill just to delay time. He thinks that if he blocks us, the fellow God Emperors behind him will not kill him. This kind of evolved beast is indeed what I originally thought. It is powerful, but their minds are relatively simple. You can't laugh or cry. Such a creature, no wonder he crashes into the realm of our gods. His mind is so simple that now he even chooses the wrong way to fight. The God Emperors all thought that Jia Yan would definitely be unable to fight them anymore, so they reluctantly approached Jia Yan one by one, and each one of them mocked Jia Yan during the conversation with brainwave power. Of course they also know that Jia Yan is not as unbearable as they said, but now they are deliberately using this way of speaking to make Jia Yan confused. Maybe the next battle will be easier. In short, no matter what, they will not believe it. Jia Yan is actually able to deal with so many of their God Emperors, and he's not really a galaxy-level being, is he? But they believe that Jia Yan, who has already become a powerful enemy by controlling several top God Emperors, must pay a certain price now. For example, the price of being unable to move his body must be a huge loss of strength. In this situation, at this moment, it actually moved again. That's right, Jia Yan, who they thought would definitely be unable to move, actually took one step forward. Huh? How is that possible? He is actually able to move while controlling so many of our God Emperors. A group of God Emperors felt like the sky was falling at this moment. After all, they didn't think it would be easy for Jia Yan to control what they did now. Of course Jia Yan was not relaxed, but he was not as tired as these God Emperors thought. Before he had any training, he used this ripple technique to control the three top God Emperors to death, and then killed two of them. The God Emperors he faced now were the first batch of relatively powerful ones. There are only 5 enemies of the God Emperor. After the strength of these 5 God Emperors has been greatly improved by Jia Yan, the ripple power used by Jia Yan is still the power borrowed from communication in the deep subspace. How can they? Maybe you can resist. Jia Yan was not completely unable to move. So at this moment, he maintained the intensity of the ripple power and came to an enemy god emperor. You came to me first, you think I can't resist? The god emperor almost felt deeply insulted by Jia Yan's arrival. After all, Jia Yan chose him first, and he believed that Jia Yan was scorning him. But what he didn't know was that the truth was completely the opposite. This god emperor seems to have the talent for strength. No, the divine system does not pay attention to talent, so he should be the one who is better at strength. Now I can feel that suppressing him is the most effective. There is pressure, so he should be chosen first. The order in which Jia Yan kills people is naturally particular. Puff. His front foot stabbed lightly right in front of the god emperor's eyes. The speeds of both sides have slowed to a certain limit. Under normal circumstances, anyone can easily perform this kind of attack. Even a star and a half-star existence can easily dodge this attack under such circumstances. Hit. But unfortunately, in the eyes of outsiders, the powerful god emperor who should have been able to easily dodge this attack actually found it extremely difficult to dodge. His power was extremely terrifying, and he was still able to move under Jia Yanbo's power. The movement is not slow. Jia Yan's own body was difficult to move, so the attack was not fast, but the god emperor's dodge speed increased, and he used his strength to break free from the restraints of Jia Yan's ripple power, so he dodged Jia Yan's power. The first attack. Sure enough, he was able to dodge my attack, extremely terrifying power. Jia Yan was silent. In his opinion, the god emperor's avoidance was almost entirely based on his own strength to break free from his restraints. Jia Yan's ripple power is actually afraid of this kind of powerful god emperor. This god emperor may not be able to compare with other god emperors in terms of real combat power, but he can break the bonds with this kind of power. In this case, the advantage is much stronger than others. If one blow doesn't work, try another one. Jia Yan didn't feel that he could no longer defeat him after he dodged a blow. His attack was just the first attempt, and his physical strength was not such a simple thing. Even now, he wasted a lot of physical energy, but with the power of this ripple, if he continued to attack for a while, there would be no any questions. So when the powerful god emperor fled to one side, Jia Yan turned around and chased after the god emperor directly. The god emperors, who were about to approach from the outside world, felt so sad that they wanted to vomit blood when they saw the two strong men fighting and defending. Because the speed of Jia Yan and the god emperor was too slow for them to accept. Hurry, as long as we get there, no matter what other methods this Jia Yan has, it will be useless. The several god emperors who rushed to the rescue felt a little shocked by Jia Yan's incomprehensible method, and at the same time they speeded up the process. As I said before, in this universe, even in the world that Jia Yan was in before, being strong means being strong. In front of a truly strong person, even if he uses an attack method that this strong person has never seen before, but given the disparity in strength, any means will not have much effect. But this is the case now. These god emperors believe that with such a large number of them, even if Jia Yan uses some fighting methods that they cannot understand at all, under their absolute strength, he will definitely be decapitated. Quick. In the battle situation here, Jia Yan also knew that if the number of enemies was not successfully reduced in this first battle, it would be thankless and absolutely uneconomical. Therefore, he also faintly forced out his true power. He must kill several god emperors in this first contact battle so that his ripple power would not be wasted. Boom. The powerful god emperor did not expect that Jia Yan actually used some kind of positive and negative brainwave power. Neither of the two powers was very powerful when used alone, but when they met, they seemed to be positive and negative. The collision of matter and antimatter directly caused Jia Yan's speed to suddenly increase. What? The escaping God Emperor did not expect that Jia Yan could move like this while releasing the ripple power that controlled several God Emperors, and he was immediately unable to react. By the time he reacted, Jia Yan's giant mosquito body, which was not much different from his own, had suddenly arrived beside him. Die! A stab to the body. This time the thrust was much faster than before. Even if it were normal times, the God Emperor would have easily avoided it, but this time, he had no way to avoid it. Well. The front feet thrust and pierced his body. Die with me. The God Emperor finally knew that he was definitely going to perish, so a ruthless look flashed in his eyes. After all, he was a strong man, and he still had this awareness. So under Jia Yan's gaze, this powerful God Emperor actually hugged him, and all the power in his body was surging. Self-destruction. Jia Yan felt that the God Emperor actually used a powerful self-destruction method that he had not seen for a long time to kill him. Generally, strong people cherish their lives and will not self-destruct unless there is no chance at all. But in Jia Yan's previous battles with enemies, when the enemy was about to die, he would quickly kill it directly. The killing was so fast that they had no chance to use the energy of self-destruction. But this time it was different. The God Emperor had no hesitation. In addition, after using the power of ripples, Jia Yan's attack power was dispersed a lot, so this time he was not fast enough for the God Emperor to react. Don't come. So his self-destruction power was unleashed. Escape. Jia Yan quickly flew back. Moreover, he instantly withdrew the power of the ripples. Although he only killed one God Emperor, he could deal with the existence that he felt was the greatest threat to his power of ripples. In the future, he would not be afraid of his power of ripples. It was easily cracked by someone. After removing the power of ripples, Jia Yan's strength returned to his usual level, and he retreated to the starry sky area in an instant. But the self-destruction force behind Yiming spread to Jia Yan. There is no sound in the starry sky. The power of the God Emperor's self-destruction is like a silent movie. Endless matter and energy burst out from the remains of the God Emperor, directly and quickly affecting Jia. Rock body. Jia Yan only felt that his body was like a small boat in the strong wind, and was shaken by this attack in an instant. Fortunately, he was strong enough and the Azure defense was quickly activated, so his body was only slightly affected and he was able to stabilize his figure without suffering too many injuries. But he stabilized his figure. The God Emperors around him had just released the control of Jia Yan's ripple power, and when they flew back quickly, two of them were slightly injured in the explosion. Hurt. That guy is so straightforward. I wouldn't even be willing to blow myself up if I were to. Okay, Jia Yan must be dead. I will help this guy take care of his grandson when I get back. It can be regarded as saving my life. Yes, I will do my best, but unfortunately, we did not kill Jia Yan, and the credit does not belong to us. Several God Emperors looked at the place with huge explosion power and thought that Jia Yan must have been killed by the self-destruction of the powerful God Emperor. Although they didn't get the first chance to kill Jia Yan, they all breathed a sigh of relief, because the power of ripples used by Jia Yan just now made it difficult for them to resist. If he didn't die, they would continue to use it now. With the power of the ripples, these God Emperors considered themselves to be powerful, and they were somewhat unable to break free. But just when they all thought they were definitely fine. Buzz. A shocking ripple of power suddenly spread out from the center of the starry sky explosion area. At this moment, a group of God Emperors felt that their bodies could no longer move again. What? How could that happen? Is this guy not dead? Why doesn't his strength seem to have declined at all? A group of God Emperors, feeling this similar power of control, knew who it belonged to. That's right, it was Jia Yan who directly used his ripple power in that place where the power of the explosion had not completely dissipated. The use of ripple power at this moment made all the god emperors in this area feel deeply fearful of the appearance of this power. And they couldn't imagine what kind of defense power could survive the self-destruction of the god emperor with that power. Could it be that this external evolved beast, which is famous for its subspace power, actually has even more amazing defensive power in addition to possessing this kind of ripple power? Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1555. Yes, their guess was absolutely correct. When Jia Yan's huge figure was revealed in front of these god emperors, everyone saw that his body actually emitted a blue brilliance, that blue color. Along with the obvious characteristics of the hardening of the body, it shows that his body parts have definitely become extremely tough. This is Jia Yan's blue defense. He's approaching, let's be careful. He actually killed a comrade while we were not paying attention, we must avenge him. However, the strength of the evolved beast is in line with his strength. Otherwise, how could he have such a great reputation? But that's the end of it. There are 4 more of us. Together, we will naturally be much stronger than the power god emperor. Let's do it. Several god emperors, after Jia Yan showed his terrifying defensive power, did not retreat but moved closer. In fact, Jia Yan's strength indeed exceeded their imagination, and it also made them all a little scared. However, one thing Jia Yan did not expect was that they all saw that after Jia Yan's self-destruction, which is not to say that there is no trace of harm. Although they didn't know what kind of defense method Jia Yan used, the laws of the universe determined that this kind of defense, even if it was powerful, would come at a huge price. They also knew that Jia Yan's strength must have suffered a certain loss, otherwise how could they dare to attack Jia Yan? So the current scene turned out to be the opposite of Jia Yan's imagination. These god emperors actually advanced instead of retreating. The god emperor is worthy of being a god emperor, let alone a group of high-level god emperors. Their combat experience is so much that even I have to be inferior. After all, I am too young. Most of the god emperors have more experience than me. Combat experience is the right thing. But sometimes their experience may not be useful. Jia Yan silently looked at the group of approaching god emperors. To put it bluntly, at this moment, they wanted to make a bargain. Because they all believed that even if Jia Yan could survive the powerful self-destruction explosion, his strength would definitely be greatly reduced, and he might even be on his last breath now. But what they don't know is that Jia Yan is an evolved beast and has his own unique defense. Another bigger feature is that his physical strength is almost several times higher than that of ordinary beings of the same level. If you want to die, then come. Jia Yan silently watched these group of god emperors rushing to his side, each one preparing to release their own strength to attack. But Jia Yan didn't have any thoughts of moving before these god emperors came close. At this moment, he seemed to be really tired and weak. Haha, he really can't fight back. Let's go. Wait, the credit is mine. Killing a powerful evolved beast is definitely a huge contribution to this great realm of gods. Just like Jia Yan's increasingly terrifying display of strength in this great realm of gods, his reputation is getting better and better now. If it is high, then the credit for killing him will be greater. But just when this group of god emperors were thinking about killing Jia Yan, the powerful god emperor, and even several god emperors would praise them. Buzz. An earth-shaking ripple of power was suddenly released directly from Jia Yan's azure body. What? My body, why does this guy still have the power to release such control? Doesn't this kind of energy require a huge amount of strength to achieve? Why was he able to do such a thing even though he was so seriously injured? Impossible. A group of god emperors were stunned, enjoying another control of the power of ripples. In an instant, a group of divine emperors were all controlled by Jia Yan again. But at this moment, the supporting god emperors who came from behind were almost arriving at the battlefield. We can't delay it any longer. If we only kill one God Emperor, it's definitely not cost-effective to waste so much energy. If the 4 God Emperors in front of us don't eat, I won't be able to make a good deal, and I won't be able to create a better situation. Jia Yan's thoughts suddenly changed. For him, this battle, even his physical ability, must be carefully calculated. Because there are too many God Emperors, even if his physical fitness and strength are much stronger than those of ordinary God Emperors, it is a pity that he cannot deal with a group of God Emperors at this moment. After all, if he didn't use his physical strength carefully, it would be impossible to kill so many God Emperors one by one, and even each of these God Emperors might cause harm to him. This time, we have to kill these guys before the God Emperor comes from behind. Otherwise, I have no choice but to escape first. Jia Yan suddenly moved. His body was completely blue, like a huge blue gem. At this moment, it was actually a bit gorgeous and beautiful. For Jia Yan, his strength has not yet reached the peak of this wave of strength, otherwise with his cross-level combat ability, he would definitely be able to easily deal with these God Emperors. But it hasn't arrived yet after all, so he can only say yes and carry out some plans for the battle. For example, first kill these 5 God Emperors to disperse the enemy's combat power, and then slowly find your own advantages in the battle. So at the moment, each step must be carried out faithfully. For example, if the first step of killing 5 people cannot be completed, then he will definitely not be able to proceed with the next steps and will definitely escape. Because the subsequent steps are more difficult to execute, and his physical fitness is insufficient. He came to the side of a God Emperor, but this God Emperor was still able to move under the power of his ripples. Haha, if you want to kill me, you have found the wrong person. When the God Emperor saw Jia Yan coming, he didn't seem to know that the Power God Emperor had died under Jia Yan's hands. He thought that Jia Yan would definitely be unable to kill him, and then fled backwards. Originally, it was absolutely impossible for him to avoid Jia Yan's attack with this step. After all, under the control of Ripple, his movement would be greatly affected, but with this step, he actually avoided Jia Yan's shocking attack. One strike. Jia Yan was stunned. At this moment, he thought that the God Emperor must have used some fighting skills. But his shock did not affect his continued attack. Since ordinary fighting methods could not kill him in one fell swoop, he used the moves he had just used to deal with the powerful God Emperor. Onmyoji erupts. Puff. The God Emperor originally used his own mobility and thought that he should be able to easily dodge Jia Yan's attack at the moment of Jia Yan's attack. But at this moment, Jia Yan actually burst out with power, and then killed the God Emperor instantly. The God Emperor was still thinking just now that even if his evasion ability could not kill Jia Yan, under Jia Yan's attack, it should be easy to protect himself. But at this moment, Jia Yan he used his strength to tell him how fantastic this idea was. After all, Jia Yan's combat ability is like a huge mystery to this realm of gods and even the entire galaxy now, because Jia Yan's yin and yang dao and various skills have never appeared before. Therefore, at this moment, it is natural that the God Emperor is unable to defend against Jia Yan's attack. It is a pity that this God Emperor did not tell the other God Emperors about his discovery before his death. In the eyes of the other God Emperors, Jia Yan did not kill the god with just one blow. Emperor, but in the next blow, he took advantage of the God Emperor's carelessness and killed him directly. The speed of movement within the ripples looked very strange, so everyone had a slight sensory lag. Everyone's thoughts and cognitions were stuck in the past, so Jia Yan's true combat power was lost. The other God Emperors slightly missed it. Jia Yan's attack did not stop. Arriving next to another God Emperor, Jia Yan's attack continued at a high speed. What? At this moment, the God Emperor's demeanor changed in response to Jia Yan's arrival. Then he hurriedly retreated. Jia Yan killed 2 God Emperors in succession. This was already a huge psychological pressure for the God Emperor. He thought that Jia Yan was definitely not something he could defeat. It would take several God Emperors present to besiege Jia Yan before victory could be possible. But his retreat gave Jia Yan another chance to use Yin and Yang Dao. Jia Yan doesn't care now. With his own strength, it is estimated that it will be difficult to kill a top God Emperor in an instant with normal attack methods, so it is better to use the Yin and Yang Dao that he is good at, even if this method uses more power. It was much more than usual, but there was nothing else I could do. Jia Yan's attack came in an instant. At that moment, the God Emperor felt that Jia Yan was going too far. But before he could turn away from this thought, Jia Yan's blow directly penetrated the vital point. This. Kill another one, and we only have 2 left. 2 of the remaining 5 divine emperors finally felt something was wrong at this moment. No, his speed, with his ripple control ability, can actually reach the speed of the outside world. This shows that his speed is definitely faster than us, and his explosive power is far from what he sees on the surface. It's that simple, run away. After all, the top God Emperor is the top God Emperor. At this moment, he had more analysis of Jia Yan's strength, and even analyzed some of Jia Yan's unique combat abilities. So the 2 of them looked at each other, and they no longer had the idea of killing Jia Yan directly. Instead, they put the thought of saving their lives into their first senses and quickly retreated. But is it too late to retreat now? The 5 God Emperors came, but they were unable to kill Jia Yan. Now there are only the last 2 left. Of course, Jia Yan cannot let them escape. The way of Yin and Yang. Jia Yan suddenly said this lightly, and then his speed became faster than ever before. Moreover, the power of ripples still existed in the starry sky as he moved, tightly controlling the 2 God Emperors. It's simply so powerful that it's terrifying. As for the 2 God Emperors, after they faced Jia Yan like this, they finally realized how terrifying Jia Yan looked like. So at this moment, they quickly used their own means of pressing the bottom of the box and went straight out to escape with all their strength. It's a pity that Jia Yan's ability is still amazing beyond their imagination. With the blessing of Yin and Yang Dao, Jia Yan's speed reached an unprecedented speed. And there was something terrifying that made both the 2 God Emperors feel helpless, and that was his ripple power. When Jia Yan launched his attack, it actually strengthened slightly. Although it is only a trace, this trace is the difference between life and death. Yes, Jia Yan is also using all his strength. If the power of ripples is strengthened by such a small amount, his energy will increase significantly. Under normal circumstances, he would not be willing to waste his physical energy like this. But I can't use it now. Puff. A God Emperor, who had just used his unique fighting method, came to Shiyuan and was about to turn around and fight Jia Yan. Unfortunately, his speed could not match Jia Yan's Yin and Yang. The speed of Tao explosion. The moment comes and then kills it. In an instant, he went to the side of another God Emperor. Jia Yan refused to even take a second look at his corpse, as if the God Emperor, who usually controlled the wind and rain in a large starry sky, was not worthy of another look. Of course, Jia Yan no longer needs to look at such a God Emperor anymore. It turns out that in Jia Yan's eyes, the God Emperor is an extremely terrifying existence. Even the top God Emperor can be easily killed by Jia Yan's existence. You actually have such strength, I don't believe it. The last God Emperor was so frightened by Jia Yan's arrival that he had to speed up his escape and wished he could grow a pair of wings. It's a pity that he doesn't have wings. Even if he does, it won't increase his flying speed much. Puff. Don't believe it? It's up to you whether you believe it or not. But your life and death are under my control. In the panic of the God Emperor, Jia Yan suddenly penetrated his body with one blow. At this point, Jia Yan, a mere star-level person who had just been promoted not long ago, actually killed a team of 5 top God Emperors in an instant. Their strength may even be among the army of God Emperors. They are all considered to be the top group, otherwise they would not be in the first echelon. This. He actually killed the 5 God Emperors on our side in an instant. It's impossible. Further on the battlefield, a group of approaching God Emperors were almost in disbelief at the strength Jia Yan showed at this moment. After all, they originally thought that Jia Yan's strength was just within their reach. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1556. The killing of the 5 God Emperors was like an unexpected blow to the God Emperors who came behind. Each of them has a certain contempt for beings like Jia Yan, just like the stellar-level creatures from the outside world, and they also have the same feeling of contempt for the creatures of the divine system. For outside creatures, although the combat power of the divine creatures here has merits, the actual combat power is much weaker than that of creatures from the outside universe system of the same level. Therefore, cosmic creatures look down on this spiritual creature. But for spiritual creatures, although their individual combat power is weaker than that of outside cosmic creatures, they have a long heritage. In addition, in terms of personal qualities, they are also much stronger than outside creatures. Their biggest feature is, it is because they have the most powerful fighting method of fighting together. A spiritual creature may be weaker than an outside creature, but 2 against 2 may not necessarily be much weaker. 3 against 3, maybe the divine creatures still have to win. Of course, they still have the problem of too short fighting endurance, but for the creatures of the divine system, they also look down on the creatures from the outside world. Even if they were facing an evolution beast that was so talkative in the external universe system, they still didn't believe that this evolution beast could deal with the top 5 God Emperors in a 1-on-5 situation. But now this disbelief has become a confirmation in their eyes. Come on, let's get there quickly. He can kill the 5 divine emperors, but there are still more than 20 of us, how can he possibly be able to deal with them? Humph, this Jia Yan is simply beyond our imagination. He actually killed 5 comrades, but he will definitely not be able to perform like this again. After these 5 God Emperors, there were still 27 or 8 God Emperors. At this moment, each of these God Emperors were chasing after Jia Yan from all directions not far from his body. But in their encirclement, Jia Yan remained motionless. He had just killed 5 God Emperors. For Jia Yan, he had used tremendous power many times. Such power was also extremely difficult for him, an evolved beast, so at this moment, he also needs to take a breath. Coming. Jia Yan's expression was slightly moved. This is the first time for Jia Yan to deal with more than 30 God Emperors, and each one of them is a top-level God Emperor just like the centipede monster he killed last time. Some of them are even more powerful than the centipede creature. A feeling of. So he could only say that the battle would depend on the situation. Now that 5 God Emperors have been killed, the group of God Emperors after the 5 God Emperors is a bit tricky for Jia Yan. They came together, and their strength was not weaker than that of the 5 God Emperors. In addition, Jia Yan's current combat power was definitely weaker than before, so he was definitely in danger. Fortunately, Jia Yan had already made plans in his mind. Buzz. His ripple power instantly communicated with the deep space of subspace. The shallow subspace was directly destroyed by the opponent, but at this moment, Jia Yan didn't have much fear. His ripple power and yin-yang dao are his biggest backup tools now. Moreover, he has another prop that seems to be more useful. The realm of stellar powerhouses does not seem to be that easy for them, so I will use my unique combat skills to fight these pretentious God Emperors. Jia Yan's ripple power was suddenly released the moment a group of God Emperors approached. And under such a release of power, his strength suddenly recovered to a large extent. A short rest can restore a lot of strength in an instant for an evolved beast like Jia Yan. In an instant, Jia Yan took action. For him, his strength did not seem to be enough to completely frighten these God Emperor creatures, but that was only now. He thought that after a while, these God Emperor creatures will flee like the group of creatures he dealt with before. Of course, this will also be the most glorious battle in Jia Yan's life, at least so far. In the future, he will only become stronger and stronger, and step by step he will defeat enemies even greater than this scene. Die. A divine emperor came to Jia Yan's side and directly exerted a seemingly powerful force from the divine realm that fixed his body. This kind of domain power is like the domain of a star-level powerhouse, but there are many fewer changes than the domain of a star-level powerhouse. Even if the God Emperor already belongs to the God Emperor powerhouse, the one who has relatively strong control over the kingdom of God, but his control over the kingdom of God is still much weaker than that of a real powerhouse in the realm of constant breath level. But behind him, another God Emperor appeared, and his cooperation with this God Emperor reached a certain level of tacit understanding. This was the terrifying technique of coordinated tactics between powerful gods. The existence of the divine system was created back then, precisely because it was known that the opportunistic methods of the divine system could not deal with so many major systems in the entire universe at that time, so this method of joining forces between the gods was created, or in other words, deliberately create in this aspect. The differences between the gods and creatures are deliberately small, so that it is easy for them to join forces. Even the gods who meet for the first time can join forces easily. Therefore, the realm of God slowly becomes more and more stable in this universe. The base of the foot. Therefore, Jia Yan did not dare to underestimate the cooperation between the two God Emperors. Buzz buzz. Waves of ripple power affected the bodies of the two God Emperors, making their arrival slightly slower. But this little bit didn't make much difference to Jia Yan's current situation, because they were just the first batch of arrivals. Jia Yan's ripples were not completely able to restrain them, and behind them, there were two others. There are more than a dozen God Emperors. After Jia Yan suddenly controlled the bodies of the two God Emperors for a moment, the two God Emperors moved with difficulty. But as they moved, they were still attacking suddenly in the direction of Jia Yan. Poof! Jia Yan's avoidance is no longer as flexible as before. But he held on forcefully, and his body was attacked by the two God Emperors' combined special skills, but he still reached one of the God Emperors and swept him away with one foot. The blue color on the feet is extremely conspicuous. So at this moment, the God Emperor, under Jia Yan's attack, was suddenly cut into two pieces in the middle by the foot that seemed to turn into a hard knife. The other God Emperor who joined forces with the God Emperor on the other side, that is, the God Emperor with more superior control ability, instantly felt the great crisis and quickly flew back. But his retreat speed was still slower than Jia Yan's attack speed. Because the two God Emperors instantly lost one person when they joined forces, their control, including the combat threat to Jia Yan, was greatly reduced. Therefore, the God Emperor's control skills were no longer useful to Jia Yan. Nothing. But he was still under the God Emperor's counterattack, and his entire azure defense was slightly dented. Only then did he use his own mouth needle to pierce the God Emperor's body. I'm not willing to give in. This God Emperor, whose main talent is in control, roared in frustration. He is equivalent to a very high-status God Emperor in the entire divine realm. Control skills are considered to be very high-level skills in this divine realm. His ability, even the God Emperor was slightly appreciative of it, but he did not expect that this outsider's ability was completely inferior to his control ability, and he died without being able to escape. He also had other skills, but under Jia Yan's domineering attack and speed, he couldn't use them at all. How could he be willing to die? But no matter how unwilling he is to die, How can he resist when death comes? This God Emperor also died. Madam, this is too much of a joke. There are two God Emperors again. I also know the Taiwa God Emperor. Even if I fight with him, I may not be able to beat him, but now he died in the hands of Jia Yan. First there were 5, and now there are 2. It is definitely a big tragedy for our divine realm. After this battle, even if we win, the entire divine realm will have to undergo huge turmoil in the future. After all, the 7 top divine emperors will lack of it will have consequences in all aspects. In addition to the previous 3 top-level god emperors, our divine realm has actually lost 10 top-level god emperors in the hands of Jia Yan in recent times. You know, this is just a little bit close to reaching the level of God. Among the divine emperors of the imperial level, there may be a certain god emperor in the future. 10 of them died. It is a huge loss. Even if this evolved beast is killed, we cannot make up for this loss. A group of people came to the god emperor, their eyes almost turned red. For the god emperor, those who have reached their level have already considered the general direction of the entire star field in the divine realm, because the divine realm is considered weak, and the surrounding strong system of the universe is not a threat to them. It was too big, so this group of god emperors directly killed their 10 god emperors like Jia Yan, causing the god realm to definitely lose the security of a large area of territory. All the killers had the same hatred. No more people must die next, otherwise it won't be as simple as turmoil. Maybe the future will be war. That's right, at least 6 god emperors need to attack as a group. Surround him first. He cannot use the subspace now. We will deal with him before the subspace automatically closes. A group of divine emperors are still planning to kill Jia Yan. They flew 1,000 kilometers away not far from Jia Yan, where the power of ripple control could not reach, and surrounded Jia Yan in a circle. But the land of 1,000 kilometers is too big. Even a god emperor who is 10 kilometers or even larger cannot completely surround this vast starry sky from top to bottom, left and right. If Jia Yan is willing, as long as you use a certain speed, you might be able to rush out. But Jia Yan did not do this. The reason why he didn't want to do this was very simple. The other god emperors may be thinking of killing Jia Yan directly when all the people are gathered. But what about Jia Yan? Why couldn't he have the idea of gathering these god emperors directly in one place, and then he would kill them all? Everyone thinks that my strength has dropped a lot. Jia Yan silently observed the besieging god emperors around him. They didn't come up to fight directly, but they were gearing up one by one. They only waited until a group of god emperors were in place, and then launched their joint stunt on Jia Yan. They didn't believe that more than 20 god emperors had joined forces. Jia Yan, whose strength is now greatly reduced, can still escape death. They would never think about the possibility that Jia Yan could turn around and kill a group of god emperors like them. If you have such thoughts, you are just thinking about it, okay. Jia Yan's strength declined too fast. After all, he killed 7 top-level god emperors in one go, who were supposed to be no less powerful than him. Each one of them required him to use his full strength. How could he not be tired? But at this moment, he was still not afraid. Because in terms of strength, he has other back UPS. Haha, I have to use my other huge backup tool. Originally, I didn't want to use too many external objects. Jia Yan smiled silently, and then he took out some small bottles from under his wing membrane. These small bottles didn't look too big, but they completely filled up his wing membranes. This is why Jia Yan didn't unfold his wing membranes when he was fighting just now. And inside these small bottles, there are actually bottles of fiery red liquid. This is. When a group of god emperors saw Jia Yan taking out such a thing, their expressions darkened. They didn't know what Jia Yan took out, but they knew that what Jia Yan took out at this juncture would definitely have a great effect, and it might allow him to kill one more of them at this moment. 2 god emperors, and then they will die together with the 1 or 2 god emperors. As for being able to use the liquid in this small bottle to suddenly make Jia Yan super powerful and kill all the god emperors, no one has thought about it. This is no longer a guess, but a whim. Stop him quickly and do it. That's right, our joint position is almost there. Even if we start fighting in a hurry, we will definitely have 60% of the normal combat effectiveness. In this way, everyone's strength and attack will be amplified by more than 3 times. How can he resist? War. The god emperors were all afraid that Jia Yan would use those bottles to create some changes, so they rushed towards the center of the encirclement where Jia Yan was. But before they rushed over, Jia Yan had already taken out the small bottle and sucked it directly with the mouth needle. The fiery red liquid inside suddenly entered his body. And he didn't just open one bottle, but opened 3 bottles at once, and the liquid inside suddenly entered his mouthparts under the control of his brainwave power. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1557. These 3 bottles of liquid are the blood of the giant family that Jia Yan obtained from the mysterious Tao world. The blood of the giants is an extremely useful energy material for Jia Yan and even other cosmic creatures. After all, at the level of life, the life strength and level of the giants exceed all life in this galaxy. Yes, that's all. Even in the central area of the Milky Way, there must be advanced civilizations and life forms that exceed those in the Orion Arm or the Great God Realm. But in this Milky Way, Jia Yan definitely knows that there is absolutely no such thing as a giant's life. If a race that is more than 1,000 kilometers long existed in the Milky Way, it would have definitely ruled this small Milky Way long ago. It is impossible that Jia Yan has not even heard of their reputation in the Milky Way. Therefore, the blood of this giant family is definitely an important war preparation material for Jia Yan. Fortunately, there are so many, and he has not completely used them up yet, and may even be able to continue using them for some time in the future. Now using this blood in battle is like a supplement of energy for Jia Yan. Very good. I feel that my strength has recovered a lot. Jia Yan silently felt a huge force, like a volcano erupting, violently exploding in his body. Suddenly, his sense of power exploded. Die. And just after Jia Yan swallowed the 3 bottles of energy like blood, a god emperor suddenly arrived, taking advantage of Jia Yan's daze. With one blow, his attack power directly caused Jia Yan to change his expression slightly. Then the god emperor only saw Jia Yan's body, which should have been greatly reduced in energy, but instead burst out with a shocking power. Buzz. The manifestation of this power was first towards him, releasing the terrifying ripple control power. To the God Emperor, his body felt like it was suddenly grabbed to death by some force, directly with one hand. He was too close to Jia Yan, and Jia Yan already had a certain way of controlling the power of the ripples, so he used most of the feeling of the ripples on the God Emperor, who instantly felt unable to move. Is also very common. He may have the ability to dodge Jia Yan's ripple power in a moment, but for Jia Yan, this moment is the best time for him to attack. At this moment, Jia Yan's feet moved. The blue color of his feet has reached an unprecedented level of blue. And the level of this blue meaning represents Jia Yan's azure defense, which at this moment is higher than ever before. Under the extremely solid blue, his front feet became very hard because of the blue, and the direction he changed became sharper. Puff. With one blow, the God Emperor had no chance at all. Jia Yan's blow directly penetrated his body. Well. This God Emperor is a God Emperor who is stronger than the 5 God Emperors who attacked Jia Yan before. He is also considered the leader among this group of powerful God Emperors. Before he came over just now, he thought that Jia Yan's strength must have been consumed a lot just now. Unfortunately, in this attack, he rushed too far forward and believed in his own judgment too much, so he lost his life. Don't be too hasty, I've said it so many times. This Jia Yan is really weird. His strength is actually recovering quickly. Of course evolved beast is worthy of his name. We must be careful, he is too evil. The God Emperor who was chasing after him could no longer remain calm. They had killed 5 God Emperors before. They already thought that this was unnatural, but now in front of their eyes, Jia Yan killed several strong ones among them again. This cannot be said to be luck, but Jia Yan's true strength. Therefore, their fighting mentality must also be changed. Even though it is hard for them to believe this kind of thing, the facts are before their eyes. For the strong, adapting to the environment is a huge prerequisite for them, so at this moment, they suddenly accepted this fact, and then it is necessary to carry out a joint battle plan to put Jia Yan's strength into perspective. They were in no rush to get on one by one. He quickly stopped flying, and when he was affected by Jia Yan's ripple power, he stood at the outermost edge of the ripple power. The God Emperors behind him quickly accelerated their speed, came to these God Emperors who rushed faster, and colluded with these God Emperors to deal with Jia Yan. But they forgot one thing at this time. That is Jia Yan's greatest strength in their eyes, and the talent they are least sure of, which is his subspace talent. In the previous battle, Jia Yan's subspace talent was temporarily banned, so they forgot about Jia Yan's talent. In other words, they felt that in this battle, there was no possibility of that space. It's opened. But Jia Yan doesn't think so. The God Emperors have banned the subspace. With their power, how can they truly ban the existence of this subspace? Their technological weapons were able to disrupt the subspace for a while, which was pretty good. After a while, the space slowly recovered this time. This feeling is like water. If the water is stirred by someone, will it recover quickly? After all, subspace is distributed throughout the universe and is like a basic force. They can be confused for a while, but they can't stay in chaos forever, let alone this vast realm of gods that doesn't connect to other dimensions. So after Jia Yan killed a god queen this time, he silently looked at the movement in the subspace. This time the space is ready for me to enter again, but it's just a little dangerous. Jia Yan silently analyzed the degree of chaos in the subspace. It was possible for him to enter, but after the surface was disrupted, he could no longer stay in it properly. So after thinking about it for a while, he decided to try entering it. If it was really inconvenient, he might as well think of a way to fight outside. In the battle in the outside world, because the God Emperors have come, there are at least 25 or 6 more. For him, it is definitely impossible to deal with so many God Emperors joining forces to attack in one go. So if subspace doesn't work, he's kind of in danger. Of course, Jia Yan will never be in any big crisis, because he has another escape route, that is, if there is really no way to enter the surface of the subspace, he can directly escape from that chaotic space in one breath. Drilling into the deep subspace, reaching that level of subspace, it is very difficult for the creatures in the realm of gods to attack. Even if they can attack, it is definitely easy to dodge. Okay, let's try it. Jia Yan suddenly entered the subspace. What? He can actually get into the subspace again. This is completely impossible, right? Although we don't have the talent for subspace, we can still see the subspace clearly in this area. The subspace here has not recovered at all, and it is even very dangerous. He actually took the risk to enter the subspace. Looking for death? In other words, he is not sure of anything. No, feel it. He can still move very easily in this chaotic subspace, this and this. A group of God Emperor creatures were all deeply shocked by Jia Yan's strength at this moment. Especially in terms of talent in this space, they believed that Jia Yan's strength might be the strongest among all the creatures they had ever seen. The most terrifying beings who have mastered subspace talents. You must know that these God Emperors are top-level God Emperors, beings who can deal with God Emperors every day, So all the creatures they talk about include the existence of God Emperors. Of course, they think that the God Emperor cannot compare with Jia Yan in terms of understanding this space, but if Jia Yan dares to show off his subspace talents in front of the God Emperor creatures, it will be an act of seeking death. Just like Jia Yan's different strength talents, if any creature with a lower cultivation level than him shows off his strength talents in front of him, it will definitely be courting death, because strength is strength. Even if Jia Yan does not have any strength talents, he has strength talents. On top of that, he is definitely a strong person with superior strength talent. Our joint strength has been brewed and we will attack in the direction where he escaped. A God Emperor suddenly launched an attack on Jia Yan's fleeing position. The other God Emperors have a vague feeling about the escape direction of Jia Yan. Even if Jia Yan is in the subspace, the God Emperor is the God Emperor. Even if he does not have the talent of subspace, he can feel that in the shallow layer of subspace. The location of Jia Yan is relatively certain. Jia Yan is indeed within the shallow layer of subspace. But the shallow level he was in was not an ordinary shallow level. Instead, it is an extremely twisted and chaotic area. The twisted chaos has almost reached the level of the third level subspace, and because it is destructive, there is no rule. Where will there be a sudden big twisted explosion that no one can resist? Something I can't even put my finger on. Be careful. In this shallow space, Jia Yan instantly felt the danger in this shallow space that was almost unimaginable to him. It is a pity that the outside creatures think that he must not be able to move in this space, but he is able to move in this space and still live well. Click click click. Jia Yan's blue defensive exoskeleton made a crisp cracking sound, but this was just a crack on the surface. The inner layer of Jia Yan's exoskeleton has always been relatively hard. The outer surface layer has cracked during battles, but the inner layer is not that easy to crack. He was in the subspace, and just about to deal with the distortion of the space, he suddenly felt a shocking breath of crisis approaching quickly. For creatures that have reached his level, there is already a trace of a magical external danger sensing mechanism. This is something that is difficult to explain scientifically. At this moment, Jia Yan's body suddenly felt a slight vibration, and then he imperceptibly and suddenly evaded in the opposite direction of the place where the vibration was detected. As soon as he avoided that place, the power of an attack suddenly came in the starry sky outside this area. It directly broke through the surface of the subspace and attacked all the way to the interior of the subspace. Jia Yan happens to be in this area. If he was in this space before, he could easily avoid attacks from the outside world, because the subspace talent is his greatest guarantee, and the space inside the subspace is different from the outside space. External attackers are difficult to hit accurately. But things are different now. The subspace is already in a state of chaos. Let's not talk about whether the outside creatures can hit Jia Yan's body accurately. At this moment, most of Jia Yan's strength is consumed in dealing with the chaos in the subspace. Coupled with the chaos of the subspace, also made the attack easier, so the attacks from the outside quickly came to Jia Yan. Huh? Did it backfire? At this moment, Jia Yan felt that something was going against his wishes in this space. But no matter how many thoughts he had, his only thought at this time was to run away first. He quickly ran away in the opposite direction from the attack. Find the book garden. But even though he was fast, there were actually attacks from the outside world in the subspace around him, all of which were coming quickly. This. Jia Yan was startled. That's all, I'll venture into the deep subspace. Jia Yan knew that the non-top god emperors last time were able to attack him when he was in the sixth dimension of space. This time, there was a group of top god emperors who didn't know how deep they could attack him. If he wanted to completely escape these attacks, he would have to escape into a deeper subspace, and this was something he had not tried since his return. But it's impossible not to try now. He backed away instantly. One subspace, that is, the subspace on the surface, was passed through by Jia Yan in an instant, and the surrounding distortion suddenly returned to normal. He escaped into the deep space. But this is a normal thing. Once or twice is about the same. Even if he can enter the third-dimensional space, I have no doubts about it. Attack. Our attack will even cause him to escape to the sixth-dimensional space. It is possible to kill him, not to mention I don't believe that he can escape into the sixth dimension. The God Emperor creatures outside saw Jia Yan actually escaping into the deep space in one breath, and quickly increased their attacks. They have no doubt that Jia Yan can escape into the second dimension. After all, if it is only a first-level space, they may be able to enter it with some strength and expenditure. If a gifted creature can only enter the first-level space. If there is no space, then there is no such thing as talent. But when you reach the second or third floor, it's different. When you reach that degree of subspace depth, every time you enter, ordinary creatures in the outside world will feel deep distortion and tearing. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1558. Even if there are talented beings, the deeper the area, the more they will be pulled by the huge twisting force. If they barely enter the depth, they will definitely be injured. Therefore, the God Emperors did not think that Jia Yan could escape into a depth that even their attacks could not reach. They were confident that even if Jia Yan escaped to the sixth dimension, they would have a chance to kill him in one fell swoop. Continue to attack, our attack will definitely be able to severely damage or even kill him. The 20-odd God Emperors were all too confident in their own self-confidence. Even after seeing the scene just now, they still believed that they could kill Jia Yan on the spot. In the hands of more than 30 God Emperors, they were able to fight back. Not to mention that they had never heard of such a thing, they had never even thought about it. Originally, they all thought that this mission was easy to come by, and that it was their mission to come and see the so-called evolved beasts and legendary races from the outside world. But now, none of them can imagine that Jia Yan's strength is actually, it exceeded their imagination, and to them, it seemed like a huge threat. At this moment, Jia Yan was also a little wary of this group of creatures. After all of them were similar to his superficial strength, or even more powerful. For Jia Yan, if this group of creatures, if the creature wants to attack him with all its strength, he is still in certain danger. Boom! Several attacks merged into one, and from outside the subspace, a sudden attack entered the subspace. Jia Yan just flew to the third level of subspace. At this time, the attack from the rear came, but Jia Yan did not change his demeanor. In this space, you still want to attack me? You are simply overestimating your capabilities. Jia Yan was in the subspace and was already very familiar with the existence of this subspace talent. At this moment, he was wary of the surrounding creatures and quickly discovered this attack of joint energy. But after this energy was blasted into the subspace, its speed and power became suddenly smaller. Although this is the attack of the three top God Emperors, which has long surpassed the attacks of the three God Emperors who forced Jia Yan into another world, for Jia Yan today, this kind of attack is really not enough. Especially after the attack entered the subspace, he didn't care about the attack so much. Of course, saying he doesn't care is not because he wants to bear it head on, but because Jia Yan is not so worried about whether this attack can hit his body. In the subspace, his movement speed is definitely beyond the imagination of the creatures in the outside world. He suddenly moved before the attack came. What? The speed of his movement suddenly accelerated. This. Several God Emperor level creatures saw Jia Yan's movements from a distance. Although they had no talent for the subspace, after opening the passage, they were still able to clearly see the three-dimensional scene of the subspace. The three God Emperors who did not reach the top level of God Emperor strength that day were all able to see Jia Yan in the six-dimensional space. For this group of top-level God Emperors, they could only see Jiayan in the third-dimensional space. That's even simpler. Sure enough, when these god emperors were extremely surprised by Jiayan's movement speed, Jiayan, who was in the subspace, suddenly moved a certain distance when the extremely amazing joint energy came, causing this attack failed directly. Come again. Several god emperors have arrived again. There were 4 of them this time, and all of them released shocking power. The 4 divine emperors directly covered the subspace in Jiayan's direction. Their joint attack was even more astonishing than the attacks of the 3 top divine emperors just now. Snort. In the subspace, Jiayan felt the joint attack of the 4 god emperors, and his demeanor suddenly changed slightly. If he were outside the universe and faced the attacks of these 4 divine emperors, he would probably lose his skin even if he didn't die. It can be seen how powerful the attacks of these 4 divine emperors are. But after Jiayan saw their joint attack, he was not too frightened. Instead, after feeling the strength of the attack, he suddenly went deep into the subspace and entered again. A hint of depth. Ah! He can still enter. This is already the 4th dimension of the subspace, right? In our great domain of gods, even scientific researchers rarely go to such deep subspaces to study. There is actually an outside talent. Being able to physically enter such a deep subspace, this. A group of god emperors almost couldn't believe it when Jiayan entered the 4th dimension again, because in their opinion, Jiayan should not be able to enter the 4th dimension. So what if we can enter the 4th dimension? We attack, and for us, the 4th dimension, even if we attack there, will be weakened a little, but not too much. Since he likes the deep subspace so much, then let him die in there. When Jiayan left this galaxy before, no one had ever witnessed the war with the 3 ordinary god emperors, so all the god emperors did not know that Jiayan had actually entered the 6th level in that battle. Subspace, so at this moment, even just seeing him enter the 4th dimensional subspace, it felt like a fuss. But they were surprised. They thought that the 4th dimension was not a very protective subspace, so their attack still came. The attacks of the 4 god emperors were like lightning, not much weaker than those in the outside universe. The combined fighting power of the 4 great god emperors, and they are top-level god emperors, is absolutely impossible for Jiayan to resist head-on. And not only them, at this moment, a group of god emperors almost completely arrived at the place where they jointly besieged Jiayan. They all used their own attacks, especially some of the god emperors, who directly used the joint divine skills, and in an instant, they launched an attack on Jiayan in the subspace. What a terrifying power! Within 4 dimensions of the subspace, Jiayan felt the power of attack energy from the outside world, and his color suddenly changed slightly. This battle is indeed the strongest battle that Jiayan has ever experienced personally. It is extremely difficult and dangerous for Jiayan to deal with more than 30 god emperors alone, and they are top-level god emperors. But he did not stop his flight. In the subspace, even if there are distortions one after another, the impact on a creature like Jiayan whose talent is in the subspace is not too huge. But the impact of this impact on external creatures is a bit huge. After the attacks reached the 4th dimension of subspace, their power was halved one after another, and the rest were still slowed down. And at this time, Jiayan, their target of attack, actually continued to move forward to a depth above the 4th dimension. Puff! Jiayan seemed to have broken through a barrier in some space, and flew into the 5th dimensional subspace in an instant. What? He actually entered the 5th dimensional subspace. Our attacks will be reduced by more than half when they reach that depth. 5th degree, does this Jiayan actually have such a terrifying subspace talent? Ordinary god emperors cannot attack at such a deep level. This guy definitely can't stay in the 5th dimension for too long. The distortion and space disorder there will soon tear him apart. The god emperor creatures no longer dare to imagine the 5th dimension of the subspace. Although their attacks can reach such a deep subspace, for them, Such a deep subspace is like a human being still a stone. It's still the same as in a trench hundreds of meters deep. Although it can be attacked, it is absolutely unknown. Therefore, they believed that Jia Yan would definitely not be able to stay in this level of subspace for long. He entered it now just to avoid the attacks of a group of god emperors. That's right, after Jia Yan entered the fifth dimensional subspace, no one expected that he would jump over the wall and run into the fifth dimensional subspace, so the attack was not calculated for this possibility. The current Jia Yan was not attacked. No hurry, let's attack again. He is within the fifth floor and almost dare not go out. Our next joint attack will completely block the fifth dimension of the subspace. I believe he is about to die and cannot exit again. Fifth degree, if you continue to go deeper, you will definitely seek death. Now let's see how he dies. Several god emperors were quick to think of Jia Yan's current disadvantage, and they all wanted to attack Jia Yan. In an instant, they all mobilized their own strength and once again attacked Jia Yan, who was in the fifth dimension. Because there are more god emperors arriving in this airspace this time, and the god emperors who arrived previously are also ready to fight, so the energy at this moment is more terrifying than the energy of the last attack. They planned to kill Jia Yan in the deepest depth of this space when Jia Yan hid in the fifth dimension. Buzz. Boom. At this moment, due to the attacks of a group of god emperors, a huge tide of energy appeared in the entire subspace. In an instant, the one subspace fell into a state of chaos again, and twice in a row. The space was a little unstable, and the second dimension almost collapsed. This is the horror of a group of god emperors joining forces to attack. Oh! This space attack is actually the really scary thing about a group of god emperors joining forces. It's really scary. Within the subspace, Jia Yan was simply shocked by the strength of this group of god emperors. In the subspace of the outside world, dozens of them launched an all-out attack on Jia Yan, a mere creature who had just reached the lower level of a star. Even if Jia Yan was within 5 degrees of the subspace, they were all deeply affected. Feeling deeply frightened. This is the instinctive fear of energy. If Jia Yan doesn't even feel the joint attack of such a large group of god emperor beings, then he will not be a star-level being, but a galaxy-level being. Back off again. Jia Yan made an action that was unbelievable in the eyes of all the god emperors. That is, in their eyes, Jia Yan actually retreated a lot further into the depth of the subspace again. How is this possible? Why does he dare to retreat to the depths for a second time? It must be driving me crazy, the sixth-dimensional subspace. It seems that our scientist just published an instrument that entered the sixth-dimensional subspace some time ago, and it was praised by our god emperor. He actually relied on his own true body. He escaped into the sixth-dimensional subspace, and he must have entered it reluctantly. Our attacks can be stopped, and he will definitely die. Yes, Jia Yan's strength is good, but his brain is not easy to use. Is it so easy to enter the sixth-dimensional subspace? His entry into it must be the result of death. We are waiting for his death in the outside world. Enough. It's simply dumbfounding. We have killed so many of our fellow god emperors, but he was not killed by us, but escaped to the deep subspace and committed suicide by himself. One by one, the god emperors were dumbfounded by Jia Yan's own jump into the sixth level of the subspace. Because in their opinion, if Jia Yan tried his best to escape in the fifth-dimensional subspace, he might be able to avoid 2 or 3 of their joint attacks, and the remaining attacks, after being consumed by the 6 subspace levels, half of the strength is gone. If it hits Jia Yan's body again, the power will definitely be greatly reduced. Maybe Jia Yan can still survive. After all, his defense is very good. But Jia Yan was so stupid that he was frightened into the 6th dimension. The depth of the space this time is too deep. For creatures such as the God Emperor, if they enter it, they will definitely die in an instant. They also believe that even if Jia Yan has good subspace talent, he will definitely not be able to sustain it for long within that level of subspace depth. Such a stupid and strong person, to call him stupid is just to flatter him. Buzz. A group of strong men bombarded the sixth degree of attack. Each one of them tilted their heads because they had not thought that Jia Yan would escape into the sixth degree of subspace, allowing Jia Yan to escape again. Of course, after 6 deep levels of weakening, even if these attacks fall on Jia Yan, it is not certain whether he will die, but Jia Yan just doesn't want to try it himself. None of these guys have thought that I can actually reach the 6th dimension. Jia Yan was in the 6th dimensional space, feeling the twisting power around him that made even him a little uncomfortable. While looking at the outside world, he could hardly see the God Emperor level existences. After reaching this depth, both sides looked at each other as if they were covered in a whole world, unable to see clearly at all. There was almost no abnormality in Jia Yan's 6th dimension, which made all the God Emperor creatures' expectations turn into disappointment and shock. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1559. He actually didn't die even in the 6th dimension. I don't believe this. The 6th-dimensional subspace has not even been explored by scientists. How can this Jia Yan survive at such a deep place with his own body? This is such a heaven-defying subspace talent, it is. No, we have to attack again. This Jia Yan is in the 6th dimension. It is definitely the last depth. We have completely covered the 6th-dimensional subspace where he is. I don't believe it. This can't destroy him directly. Kill. The God Emperors believed that Jia Yan was in the 6th dimension of the subspace and thought it must be the last depth. The 6th-dimensional subspace is indeed very deep, but generally speaking, it is not absolutely impossible for them to attack. As is the case now, they are not just one person. One person can attack the 6th-dimensional subspace, and a group of people working together can easily attack the 6th-dimensional subspace. So even though Jia Yan reached the 6th dimension for the first time, they still didn't think anything unexpected happened. Boom. And when their joint attack came out again, sure enough, the power of this attack actually reached 6 degrees of depth. But something happened that shocked a group of God Emperors. That was when they attacked Jia Yan, who was retreating further and further inside the 6-degree deep subspace. Finally, he retreated into an extremely deep space that even Jia Yan himself had never entered. 7 degrees. Within the depth of this 7-degree subspace, Jia Yan suddenly felt that the twisting power not only made people feel a sense of distortion, but the surrounding space was completely in a state of tearing, almost like nothing could possibly stay. But Jia Yan's talent for subspace gave his body a sudden hint of resistance. At this moment, Yin-Yang Dao also suddenly activated, using the positive and negative brainwave powers outside the body to isolate the twisting and tearing forces outside Jia Yan's body from the body. So when he reached the 7th dimension, Jia Yan suddenly endured it. The huge attack from the outside world by a group of God Emperor creatures stopped in front of this place in the 7th dimension. A group of divine emperor creatures were completely stunned when the outside world saw this scene. In the 7th dimensional subspace, even scientists in the realm of the gods have never explored such a deep place. It is not that science and technology cannot explore, but it is not necessary. Once science has explored such a place, there is nothing worth studying and using. Therefore, no one spends a lot of money to study such deep subspace. But in the subspace that no one can reach, a living exception appeared in their eyes today. That is the so-called powerful creature in the universe, and the biggest enemy in their eyes, the evolutionary beast Jia Yan. In other words, giant mosquito Jia Yan. This foreign creature, in the eyes of a group of God Emperor creatures, not only entered the third depth of the subspace in one breath, but also reached the fifth and sixth dimensions of the subspace. In the end, it was unprecedented, entering the seven-dimensional subspace. This made a group of creatures completely unable to believe it, as if they had seen something and were looking for clues. But unfortunately, this miracle was not caused by their teammates, but by a very troublesome enemy. This made a group of creatures feel deeply uncertain about Jia Yan's behavior this time. 6. He actually reached the seventh dimension. Our joint attack cannot enter the seventh degree. The seventh dimension of the subspace is no longer something that our attacks can reach, but it requires the existence of the God Emperor's attacks to reach that level. Don't worry, Jia Yan definitely has no way of staying in such a deep subspace for how long. He is not a God Emperor, just a God Emperor. How can he possibly go to a realm that only a God Emperor can reach? The God Emperors are still deceiving themselves. They believed that Jia Yan would definitely not be able to stay in this seventh-dimensional subspace for long, because they believed that even the joint attack of a group of God Emperors could not reach such a deep level in that seventh-dimensional subspace, so this things on this level belong to the God Emperor level. Since Jia Yan is not a God Emperor level creature, no matter how powerful he is, it involves things at the God Emperor level. Even if he can temporarily borrow this kind of power, he may not be able to stay for too long. After all, it belongs to the Yuanda level. You must know that the gap between the star level and the God Emperor level is as big as the sky. In fact, their guesses were not too wrong, because even Jia Yan now felt extremely strenuous in this seventh-dimensional subspace. It's scary. If it weren't for my Azure defense and the strength of Yin and Yang Dao, I probably wouldn't have been able to survive in this situation. Compared with the sixth degree, the seventh degree is only 1 degree higher, but this degree the gap is like the terrifying difference between star-level creatures and galaxy-level creatures. Fortunately, I didn't try to enter this seventh dimension before I improved my strength, otherwise I would definitely be seeking death. Jia Yan only felt his body cracking. He also knew that he would only be able to stay in this space for a while at most. If it goes any longer, you will definitely be seriously injured, and there is even a slight risk of death. But because in this seventh-dimensional subspace, the feeling of space is instantly different from the sixth-dimensional space, so Jia Yan also felt some good things. That is the situation where the distortion suddenly increases or the distortion becomes unstable, which has become very rare. There are still large areas of distortion superimposed on the sixth degree, which is what caused the monster in that space, but in the depth of this seventh degree, it is rarely seen, because the distortion in the seventh degree has reached the level of transformation, so it is difficult to maintain an unbalanced state here. Moreover, Jia Yan has the experience of ejecting to places deeper than this on the Edissa. He knows that the deeper the subspace, the more stable it is. Among the unknown depths where the Edissa finally ejected the ground is even like a pool of stagnant water. Only when outside creatures enter it can people see how terrifying the terrifying depth of the place can be. Buzz buzz. The attacks in front of Jia Yan's eyes seemed to be completely resolved by those distortions in the subspace. The attack that could have hurt Jia Yan or even killed him was actually resolved bit by bit and could not reach Jia Yan. Humph, I'll leave first. Jia Yan suddenly started to move with difficulty in the seventh dimension. But what he didn't expect was that although he knew that moving in subspace would become very exaggerated, Jia Yan believed that the sixth and seventh degrees should not be much different, but in Jia Yan during this movement, I suddenly felt that my body was traveling as fast as a roller coaster. Moving within the seventh dimension, even if Jia Yan only struggled to move a little, his speed was like riding a roller coaster, suddenly moving a lot. Oh my god! Jia Yan suddenly felt that with just a slight struggle, he reached an area more than 1,000 kilometers away from the battle. This is the reason why the Edissa, when ejected from the depth of subspace, has a speed that is about 1,000 times faster than the speed of light. Go out. In the eyes of a group of God Emperor creatures, Jia Yan suddenly lost his trace. They all couldn't help being shocked. This Jia Yan definitely escaped. They all looked ugly, because so many of them God Emperors attacked Jia Yan, but Jia Yan killed nearly 10 of them, and then he escaped. It's obviously just a little bit close. If he dares to stay a little longer, we will definitely kill him. Speaking of hindsight, Jia Yan knows that we can't defeat us together, so it's normal to escape. Is he still leaving this place for us to kill? No, he's in the 7th dimension. We can't hit him at all. What's the matter? He's in the 7th dimension and won't be here for long. The God Emperors looked at each other in shock. They were caught off guard by Jia Yan's sudden escape this time. But thinking about it carefully, they also understood that when Jia Yan was besieged by more than 30 God Emperors, he was able to kill nearly 10 of them. Now that he was exhausted, he could escape calmly. This was something that had never happened in the history of the Divine Realm. This was enough. He had used it as his best record for a long time. Why stay and fight them again? There was no chance of victory and he was just looking for death. Forget it, let's clean up and report back later. This Jia Yan issue is no longer something that our God Emperor can solve. It is only possible if the God Emperor comes forward. The 20 or so God Emperors were silent for a while. Although they were reluctant to admit it, after Jia Yan left like this, they knew that there was absolutely no chance of killing Jia Yan. Because even if they use subspace interference instruments, Jia Yan possesses a high degree of subspace ability. For them, there is no way to interfere with this ability. Then they knew that Jia Yan was an existence that they could not possibly deal with or kill. Even if Jia Yan fights them, he will be exhausted, he can leave at any time if he wants, plus several other extremely powerful abilities. If you think about it carefully, it is really impossible for them to deal with Jia Yan, or even fall. On its own, this evolved beast could easily kill them. The threat from outsiders like this is too great. Not only are they extremely afraid of Jia Yan's future harm to the realm of the gods, they are even thinking about whether Jia Yan will suddenly attack them, the God Emperor, in subspace. It is estimated that no one can escape if they are alone. So they were all thinking about it, and then went back to persuade several God Emperors to let them personally take action and kill Jia Yan directly. As for whether the God Emperor can beat Jia Yan, this is a question that goes without saying. Even the God Emperor can't defeat this guy. It's simply not possible. Let's go. Fortunately, our battleship is not damaged. Turn back quickly. Those who are able to do so will immediately use the ultra-long-distance communication method in the battleship to inform the God Emperor of the accident here. Okay. Within a few seconds, the several God Emperors came to their senses from their stunned state and made plans for the future. After all, Jia Yan left, and they had no choice but to leave. But just when they were about to leave and relax their vigilance, the subspace suddenly opened next to a God Emperor who was far away from the main force. Buzz. The power of ripples suddenly spread out. Well. The God Emperor didn't notice at all, and was completely controlled by the power of the ripples. In this area, the damage to the first level of the subspace is not that big, so the existence moving in the subspace is still not greatly affected. So this gave Jia Yan a chance. When the God Emperor was controlled by the power of ripples, Jia Yan's front foot suddenly thrust out from the subspace. Puff. The God Emperor died immediately. Ah, he appears again. Why, how dare he show up? He killed another one, and this time there was still such a huge sense of energy. Won't he be tired? Come in, the evolved beast is really scary, but we don't have to worry, there are so many of us, he can't beat us no matter how hard he kills. Some of the God Emperors were frightened, some were furious, while others wanted to run away. Jia Yan's display of his strength again and again made some of the God Emperors feel extremely frightened. Godly creatures are very precious to their lives. For the God Emperor, especially such a top god emperor, in this great realm of gods. Among them, except for the most powerful people under the god emperor, they would certainly feel that since Jia Yan's strength was too weird and too dangerous, it would be better to leave directly. So at this moment, the indestructible ability of the god emperors to join forces actually became a little loose. Puff. The death scene of the god emperor was very terrifying. Because the distance was relatively far, Jia Yan actually inserted his mouthparts directly into his body and sucked the other person's blood desperately. This scene made all the god emperor creatures feel a sense of panic. This guy actually sucks blood. Well, how painful this must be. A majestic god emperor is actually so painful that he twitches. It's simply. You must know that the god emperor creature's ability to withstand pain is extremely exaggerated, but under Jia Yan's blood-sucking, the god emperor was actually frightened and painful to the point of convulsions. So how much other god emperors were to Jia Yan's blood-sucking, it was uncomfortable, and I felt a sense of fear. It's better to escape separately. Otherwise, Jia Yan is too unfaithful. If we stay and fight, the team will probably be wiped out. No, since this is the mission of the God Emperor, what does it matter if we escape? There will be no chance to climb up in the future. Maybe we won't even have the chance to be promoted to the God Emperor, so we might as well give it a try. There is a growing gap among the God Emperor. Even the powerful God Emperors who took the lead felt a lot of pressure. There is not much difference in strength between them. Even if these few have a higher status, in fact no one can give orders. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1560. Especially at such a time of life and death, the words of these leaders temporarily appointed by the God Emperor have no effect at all. Die. Jia Yan did not enter the subspace again, but killed a God Queen and rushed directly to the next God Emperor. Puff. Since the God Emperor had no other helpers, he naturally died faster. The top God Emperor gave a helpless smile. He was too close to Jia Yan just now. Although he had already started to run away, he was still too close after all. He had always had bad thoughts in his heart. Now it turned out that he was able to kill Jia Yan with one blow. Killed by Jia Yan. Before he died, he had one thought in his heart, and that was: how could the God Emperor let these God Emperors come to kill such an outsider creature with incredible combat power? Wouldn't it be better to just turn a blind eye and let people leave the realm of the gods? Unfortunately, his thoughts could not be conveyed. Jia Yan's existence is like opening a plug-in in this cosmic area, which is extremely astonishing. He entered subspace again. Let's leave first and get closer. Although this guy is very powerful, if he is attacked by a group of God Emperors together, he will definitely die. Several God Emperors already knew a lot about Jia Yan's strength. Now that they saw that his strength had not weakened at all, they suddenly felt mysterious and had no thoughts of killing him anymore. One by one they fled towards the outside world. Want to escape? Jia Yan was in the subspace, and his energy was not as abundant as a group of God Emperors imagined, but had been greatly reduced. Even with the blood replenishment of the giant family, the process of biological absorption of energy and nutrients takes time, even for evolved beasts that absorb extremely quickly. Therefore, Jia Yan's physical strength, even with the blood of this giant family as a supplement, there is no way to replenish it to a full state in such a short time. Even because the energy is still being lost rapidly during the battle, it will take at least a lot of time to replenish it with the blood of the giant family. Jia Yan's recovery ability is already extremely fast. Don't forget that for more powerful creatures, the recovery speed is astonishingly slow. It's not that the more powerful creatures are, their recovery ability is really slower, but that their total energy is too large, so their recovery seems to be slower. But in fact, the more powerful creatures, in terms of just talking about the total energy recovery speed, is faster than any other creature, but when compared to its own total energy, it is much worse. For example, if a star-level creature or an ordinary creature is not an evolved beast, after an all-out battle, no matter how injured it is, it usually takes months to recover its energy. This is no joke. Therefore, Jia Yan can quickly recover energy in battle. In addition to the help of the blood of the giant family, his talent of evolved beasts also plays a great help. This group of God Emperor level creatures is different. They didn't seem to use much combat energy just now, but in fact they have jointly attacked Jia Yan several times. At this time, their energy has been reduced a lot. That's why they wanted to escape. It's absolutely impossible to escape. Jia Yan silently retreated into the subspace. His combat ability became more terrifying the more the enemy lost its combat effectiveness. Puff. Another protrusion in the subspace, Jia Yan suddenly came to the side of a God Emperor creature, and his attack suddenly appeared. This God Emperor creature is a creature that looks like a monkey, and his body is very flexible. The moment Jia Yan flew out of the subspace, the God Emperor had already felt his arrival. Suddenly, the God Emperor turned over in the starry sky like a real giant monkey. Somersault. Jia Yan's attack seemed to pass by his body. Humph, do you think you can really escape? The creature escaped Jia Yan's kick, thinking that Jia Yan would be unable to attack him, but a ripple of power controlled the tumbling man tightly. You. The monkey-like God Emperor was stunned for a moment, and then his body was tightly controlled under such an attack. Since he can't move, isn't his life and death controlled by Jia Yan? So in the helpless eyes of the God Emperor, he lived for an unknown length of time before his life was completely cut off, and his heart was penetrated by Jia Yan. The Monkey King is also dead. This guy's fighting power seems to have become stronger again. Leave quickly. The evolved beast is too weird. Several God Emperors were nearby, and when they saw this scene, they were completely frightened by Jia Yan. Especially after Jia Yan just killed this monkey-like creature, their mentality was completely shattered. Although this monkey-like creature is not the strongest among them, his ability to escape should be among the best, but such a being cannot escape even a single move in Jia Yan's hands. This made a group of God Emperor creatures know that Jia Yan must be much stronger than before. Everyone knows that in battle, it must be the physical strength or the amount of fighting. The more you fight, the lower you will be. However, Jia Yan, the evolved beast, did the opposite completely. He obviously did not make any breakthrough in energy, but the fighting power is still getting stronger with each fight. He was different from Jia Yan just now. In the previous battle, although his fighting ability was also very powerful, he would definitely have to use more than 2 moves to fight against this monkey-like creature, but it is different now. Unexpectedly, Jia Yan only used 1 move to directly kill the monkey-like creature of the God Emperor. Escape. If you don't escape, you will definitely die. The God Emperor, who still had the slightest idea of killing Jia Yan, had to speed up his escape at this moment, because they already knew that this evolved beast was no longer something they could deal with. The more you fight, the stronger you get. This is how people fight. Coupled with Jia Yan's elusive subspace talent and ability to enter the 7th degree of subspace, it is even more difficult to fight against. The 7th dimensional subspace ability alone requires the presence of the God Emperor to attack him, not to mention Jia Yan's other advantages and skills. This group of God Emperors is so nervous that they think they must definitely attack him. Tough luck. And this is actually the case. When Jia Yan saw that these God Emperors actually started to escape, he finally felt that the plot was back to what he liked. Many of the enemies he dealt with escaped in this way. And as long as he falls into such an escape time point, then it is at this moment that he begins the journey of massacre. Jia Yan did not resist the pursuit. On the contrary, I found it very interesting. The interesting part is whether I can kill them all. But unfortunately, when I chase them, only a handful of them can escape. Jia Yan moved quickly in the subspace. Then he chased after a god emperor, and then quickly stepped out of the subspace. Jia Yan's flying speed in normal space is not outstanding, but after the bonus in subspace, this flying speed has reached the level of a battleship. For the god emperors who only rely on the physical body to fly, it must be flying but his. After Jia Yan flew out of the subspace, he suddenly attacked the god emperor's back. The god emperor felt that he was very unlucky and quickly turned around to deal with Jia Yan's arrival. Beings who have reached this level of strength, whether they are the god emperor or high-level stellar creatures from the outside world, will have their own unique skills. Most creatures are very confident in their own unique skills, and this god emperor is no exception. At this moment, he directly used his special skill. Jia Yan's arrival made the god emperors around him not even dare to join forces to fight, but directly used faster flying speed to escape into the distance. It's not that the god emperor creatures are not sensible enough, but that they understand that even if they join forces, it will only take a little longer. After all, so many god emperors just joined forces, and they can't defeat Jia Yan. Now only 3 or 4 god emperors are even more difficult. It's impossible. A hasty counterattack would even cause Jia Yan to pay attention to these 2 people. Therefore, since they want to escape, they cannot attract Jia Yan's attention. They simply do not fight back. Whoever encounters Jia Yan's arrival will be counted as that person. Bad luck. If you want to kill me so easily, you are looking down on me. The creature chased by Jia Yan also looked like a bug. His special skill was to throw a bunch of things that looked like his excrement in space. This thing is indeed the excrement of this God King creature, but it is actually a little different, that is, this kind of thing has great explosive power. Hey, it's quite similar to some of my Onmyeto methods. Jia Yan was stunned for a moment. Then he didn't have any fear, but continued to attack the God Emperor as the explosives were thrown out. In the universe, there was a soundless ray of light that suddenly exploded. The insect-like God Emperor creature actually completely projected his self-destruction attack onto Jia Yan's body. But none of the Divine Emperor creatures around him stopped. If Jia Yan was so easy to kill, he would have died a long time ago. Sure enough, when the insect creature felt that his special skill must have taken effect, behind his body, there was suddenly a space crack, which suddenly opened, and a sharp needle appeared in it. Reach out and nail it directly. Jia Yan retreated into the subspace and headed towards his next target again. It was a pity that the targets he was chasing during this trip were the 2 God Emperors who just turned a blind eye to the death of the insect God Emperor. He actually came to chase us. The 2 God Emperors saw Jia Yan actually chasing after them. Even though they were somewhat mentally prepared, they still looked extremely ugly, as if they were mourning for their heirs. They don't think that they can get a chance to escape from Jia Yan's attack. Because the previous God Emperors had spent their lives telling them this matter was absolutely impossible. Master Jia Yan, we have something to discuss. We can give you information. Yes, Lord Jia Yan, we don't want to die, let us be your subordinates, we don't have to be slaves. The 2 God Emperors quickly apologized to Jia Yan for his rapid arrival. The expressions of the surrounding God Emperors changed for a while after hearing their words. But they put themselves in Jia Yan's shoes and thought that if they were also chased by Jia Yan, they would definitely be thinking the same thing, so no one said anything. And if he said it easily, what if Jia Yan might set his target on them later? Oh, do you want to beg for mercy? It's too late. Jia Yan didn't think that such a subordinate would be a trustworthy subordinate, so he didn't agree with their plea for mercy and directly attacked a God Emperor. You actually don't accept our surrender. You think we can't defeat you? It's simply abominable. I, the majestic Emperor Kinkan, have already humbled you. You still want to humiliate me like this? Let's die together. When the 2 God Emperors saw that Jia Yan actually ignored their pleas for mercy, did not even give them a little time, and attacked directly. They were immediately angry. For the strong, they all have their own self-esteem, especially the strong, it is difficult to regain it. Although this is also the reason why Jia Yan is unwilling to accept these two subordinates of the God Emperor, they also because of Jia Yan's rejection, he felt even worse than death. The pride of the strong made them fight back against Jia Yan regardless of everything. Even if they didn't fight back, they would definitely die. But when they made up their mind, at this moment, they launched their most powerful attack. Buzz. A shocking power of control tightly controlled them to use the power of attack. The two divine emperors both smiled bitterly. They knew that their own strength was getting further and further away from Jia Yan, who had just dealt with several God Emperors and was still struggling. The God Emperor just now might have been able to cause a little harm to Jia Yan, but now they can no longer do it. This shows that Jia Yan's strength has improved a lot. With this kind of speed of progress, what kind of existence has our spiritual realm encountered? No wonder the stellar academic realm is chasing after this guy. After all, it is really terrifying. It's a pity that he has fully grown up during this time in our spiritual realm. It would be great if we had used the plan earlier and killed him at all costs. Unfortunately, unless the God Emperor comes in person, there really is no creature that can deal with him. Both God Emperors were disappointed with Jia Yan's strength at this time. Poof. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1561. Jia Yan actually struck one at a time in a split second. First, he used a mouth needle to pierce the body of a God Emperor, and in the other blow, he used his front feet to finish them off in 2 blows. My strength has actually grown a lot during this period of fighting. Indeed, for evolved beasts, fighting is the best way to grow. Jia Yan silently observed the results of his battle, and was quite satisfied with his growth in strength. Especially hitting a top-level God Emperor existence is very exciting for him. Before this, every one of these guys was a creature that could match up to 2 moves against him, but now they couldn't even match up to 1 move. Of course, the price for achieving such a result was that the blood of Jia Yan's giant family was consumed at an extremely rapid rate, and it was consumed like crazy. But being able to win this battle is worth any price. Puff. There was another explosion in the subspace. At the sound of this explosion, Jia Yan burst out of the subspace. A divine emperor creature died again under Jia Yan's pursuit. Damn it, he has killed more than 15 of his fellow god emperors, nearly half of the total number when we came. I can't beat him. Now I can escape faster. This guy is so good at chasing. For someone like him, he must have been chasing and killing him all the time. Even his ability to chase and kill feels more comfortable than fighting. Let's run away. There are less than 20 god emperors left, and they have no idea of dealing with Jia Yan's strength. Their thoughts were the most consistent with Jia Yan's thoughts. He liked this kind of escaping opponent. The more he thought that he could escape, the faster Jia Yan would kill him. Speed has no effect in his eyes. Even if they activate the battleship, it is impossible to escape from Jia Yan's pursuit in subspace until the speed of the battleship increases. These time differences are Jia Yan's absolute advantage. One by one, the god emperors were quickly killed under Jia Yan's subtle calculations. That's right, even under such a chase, he had to use very precise calculations, because each god emperor's escape direction was different, so Jia Yan had to think about the other party's escape direction. It's not something you can chase down, or it's not easy to catch up. This involves so many calculations and estimates that Jia Yan couldn't finish it in one night. In short, after using this calculation method, he used the most efficient way to pursue these god emperors. Each one of them was like a headless chicken escaping from such pursuit. It seems that we are all running in separate directions. Why can we clear people so quickly? This guy is too familiar with hunting and killing. He knows our escape methods clearly. In short, it's impossible for him to hunt down all of us. We can't turn around and fight against such a creature that we can't beat. We are already so outnumbered. It would be stupidest to fight him instead. It is not that no one among the God Emperors has thought about whether to launch a counter-attack against Jia Yan, but the God Emperor who wanted to do so had already died under Jia Yan's attack, so the rest were all those who had been killed from the beginning. They escaped very simply, and now the God Emperors are the furthest away. In less than 10 minutes, in this starry sky, the God Emperor, who was easier to chase, was all hunted down by Jia Yan. The remaining ones were the God Emperor who had fled tens of thousands of kilometers, even more than 100,000 kilometers. A full 10. They will have to spend some energy chasing and killing them, but if they don't kill me, my combat advantage will be revealed to them. Maybe those who come to fight in the future will be able to compete with my advantages and combat abilities. Way. It is absolutely impossible for Jia Yan to let go of these God Emperors. After all, these God Emperors have witnessed Jia Yan's current strength and almost all of Jia Yan's combat abilities. If any one of them escapes, something bad is going to happen. If there is no God Emperor in the divine realm, he has nothing to fear. Even if he has any ideas, he can crush them with his strength. But with a person equivalent to the galaxy level after becoming the God Emperor, he no longer dared to do this. When the God Emperor arrives, he may also use subspace talents or abilities such as ripples to gain a certain chance of escape. However, if others know his information, it will not be so easy to escape. Where to escape? Jia Yan caught up with the God Emperor and stabbed him with a mouth needle, piercing his entire body. During this period of fighting, Jia Yan made more and more use of his mouth needle attacks. As an organ that has almost no functional functions, Jia Yan is no longer afraid of using the mouth needle to attack. Moreover, because of the uniqueness of the mouth needle, its hardness and powerful attack power make it easier to use than the front feet. Therefore, the creature with this eye, even if it is a top-level God Emperor, still has no chance to withstand it and is killed in one blow. Next, Jia Yan looked at the God Emperors who were fleeing further and further, and knew that he could not hold back any longer, so after his body entered the subspace in an instant, he suddenly went deep into the 6th layer of the subspace. At this depth, pursue directly. The 6th level is the deepest level that Jia Yan can stably enter now. The 7th level is still a bit unstable and may even be dangerous, so he will not list it as an option for his daily entry. Puff. But the 6th level was enough. With the help of the 6th distortion, Jia Yan reached the space behind a certain God Emperor in an instant, as fast as if he suddenly reached or even exceeded the speed of light. After the blow, the God Emperor didn't even feel much about Jia Yan's arrival, but he realized that his body actually had a fatal wound. I'm not willing to give in. Even if I die, I want to die with you. The God Emperor's words before his death made Jia Yan, who once again retreated into the depths of subspace, shake his head. You're overthinking, brother. If my strength hadn't improved before, you still had a chance. Now. Jia Yan knew that his strength had improved too much in this battle against more than 30 God Emperors. This is not because Jia Yan is really becoming more brave as he fights. In other words, even if he has such talent and body, the greater possibility of improvement this time is that he has just been promoted not long ago, and his current strength is of course the period when he has made the fastest progress. This battle also had a great tempering effect on him. Every enemy initially needed to be dealt with all his strength, but now, it has become a one-sided killing. Even Jia Yan himself can't accept the speed of this change. But his strength is a real improvement. Even Jia Yan has to admit that his improvement in strength is actually very solid, and there is no feeling of instability. Kill. He once again emerged from the subspace and killed another God Emperor. There are already more than 30 God Emperors, and there are only two beings to be killed next. But of the two divine emperors, one of them had already fled without a trace, and the other was about to disappear at the end of the horizon, or in other words, he was no longer within the distance that people on Earth could see. It is more than 1,000,000 kilometers away, several times the distance from the Earth to the Moon. Even Jia Yan can't see this distance clearly, let alone the people on Earth. But Jia Yan was still vaguely aware of the existence of the God Emperor through the strong sense of strength. Let's solve the closest thing first, Order 1, and then we can follow it according to memory. Jia Yan was helpless. The God Emperor who escaped must have been gifted with speed. It was no surprise that he escaped from his observation distance. This was because he deliberately left the only one with the fastest speed behind. He was lucky. The place where he escaped was not in the same direction as Jia Yan when he was chasing him. Otherwise, Jia Yan would have killed such a speedy being first. If we chase the speedster, maybe he won't be the only one fleeing now, but more. In the subspace, Jia Yan first caught up with the God Emperor who had not escaped too far, and struck out with one blow. Surprisingly, the God Emperor had already known the feeling of Jia Yan's appearance, and instantly avoided Jia Yan's 4-foot attack. Huh? This guy is quite capable, but it's no wonder, otherwise he wouldn't be able to escape this far. Jia Yan silently felt that this guy's strength had almost reached the peak of the God Emperor stage, and he was almost just one step away from reaching the feeling of the God Emperor's existence. Of course, this was the case for the group of God Emperors that were killed before. Each one reached the peak of the God Emperor. Although it seemed to be a little bit behind this one, their strength was similar, and the difference was not much different. This God Emperor actually hid his true strength in the battle just now, which slightly surprised Jia Yan. Your Excellency Jia Yan, I have no intention of fighting you, just let me go. Seeing that he had dodged Jia Yan's blow, the God Emperor exhaled immediately. Oh? If you think you can dodge my attack, do you think you can dodge forever? No, Your Excellency, please don't do anything. I don't think you can't kill me. It's just that you have been fighting for so long and killed so many God Emperors. It is impossible that you have not lost any combat power. Please let me go. I actually don't belong. I am a subordinate of the God Emperor, but belong to a chamber of commerce. If you let me go, I will become your subordinate in the future in this great domain of gods, and I will provide you with information and related resources. What do you think? Oh? You want to take refuge in me to save your life, right? Jia Yan was startled. In fact, he also feels that he should need a helper in this great realm of gods. There is not much else. The most important thing is the passage to another world. If there is someone there to help him watch, then he will still be there in the future. There is an opportunity to go here. Very good, then I will spare your life. What I want you to do has been told to you. Now I will go after another guy. Remember, don't leak my battle information. If it leaks, you will know the result in the future. I believe that in a short time, this great realm of gods will be just my back garden. If you don't believe me, you can try betraying my judgment. Jia Yantu did not know how to fly directly towards the other place where the God Emperor escaped. The God Emperor was stunned. He thought that Jia Yan must not be so easy to talk to and wanted to kill him. But now he saw that Jia Yan had no intention of killing him. This made the God Emperor feel that Jia Yan was not that easy to talk to. Does Yan have any conspiracy? In fact, Jia Yan had no conspiracy, but at this moment, he knew that even if the God Emperor had bad intentions towards him, it would be useless. When he passed a group of God Emperor's warships just now, he deliberately destroyed these warships one by one. Killing uncontrolled warships is actually very simple. Even if some of the God Emperor's subordinates are stubbornly resisting, for Jia Yan, it's just 1 or 2 more attacks per ship. Without these battleships, it would take at least a long time for the God Emperor he had spared to quickly reach other places with battleships. And if he wanted to use ultra-long distance communication capabilities, it would take even more time to find him. Before that, Jia Yan will use the gravitational wave channel to escape to other places. So he is not afraid, or in other words, he is taking a gamble. He has already used the brainwave power communication method to leave it to the God Emperor in the large star field in another world. Let him go over there to protect it. And this kind of protection is what he wants. After all, in the future, he might really go to that extremely powerful world. Oh! The last guy escaped so fast. Abandoning the God Emperor who had let him go, Jia Yan chased him all the way, using the power of the six-dimensional subspace pursuit. He quickly chased after him according to the direction where the last enemy escaped in his memory. He still managed to return after half a day. No trace was found. Ha, I know, he should be hiding in that asteroid land just now. Jia Yan smiled slightly, turned around, and chased back towards the asteroid land he just passed. Sure enough, when Jia Yan returned to the asteroid land, he saw a God Emperor flying out of the asteroid land and escaping quickly in the other direction. Jia Yan was in the six-dimensional subspace, and ordinary God Emperors couldn't notice it, but this God Emperor actually noticed it. You're back. It's too fast, this. The God Emperor's talent is actually in space. It's just that he is in the divine realm, and there is almost no possibility of developing his spatial talent. Therefore, in this divine realm, he has become just a being who is sensitive to space. The God Emperor didn't do much in terms of utilizing his space talent, but he could also use his talent to speed up his flight. This is why he was the first to escape. But now, he felt that in the subspace with a depth of 6 degrees, a flying figure came from the subspace with a space talent that far exceeded his. Before he could speak, a shocking attack suddenly came out from the subspace. Surrender, one is enough. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1562. When Jia Yan's attack fell, no matter how powerful the God Emperor was, and how many stories and connotations he had, he was still unable to resist. Speaking of which, it is so simple in the universe, but sometimes the reality is terrifying. As long as you have power, even if you have no connotation or story, you can still decide the life or death of another strong person. Just like the current situation, although Jia Yan is not necessarily less connotative than the God Emperor, a God Emperor who can achieve such strength and has a certain status definitely has connotation, but he is still in. Jia Yan died in one blow. And it's not just him. There are a group of other God Emperors, reaching more than 30 top God Emperors. No matter which one is taken out, they are all in this great realm of gods. They are the existences that can call the wind and rain, but they still cannot be in front of Jia Yan. It took too long, and even their names were not known to Jia Yan, so they died in his hands. Sharp. In the distance, the God Emperor creature who surrendered to Jia Yan did not actually escape. Instead, he quickly figured out the matter. He hung up behind Jia Yan from a distance and saw Jia Yan killing him. The process of this God Emperor. This gave him a better understanding of Jia Yan, the God Emperor. The more than 30 top-level God Emperors may not be easy to deal with, not only him, but even a weak God Emperor. However, Jia Yan used his unique combat skills to defeat this group of God Emperors. God Emperor, everything is solved. This made him think deeply about what Jia Yan had said. Forget it, I will go to that star field first and take a look. If he does not come back within 10 years, I will tell him the information. I believe that the other God Emperors do not know the agreement between us. I just want to, even if I was seriously injured and recuperated for 10 years before showing up again, no one would say anything to me. The God Emperor was afraid and believed that Jia Yan's strength might really overthrow the entire divine realm. For the sake of the future, he really did not dare to disobey Jia Yan's words. The God Emperor left the area where Jia Yan was far away. Oh, did he see it? But it doesn't matter. Even if he saw it, I didn't feel that there was anything I couldn't see. I've seen enough before. Jia Yan silently watched the God Emperor's departure route. His back was vaguely visible in Jia Yan's eyes. If he really wanted to pursue him, he might still be able to catch up now. Forget it, he doesn't have any way to report the information immediately. What I want to do now is to catch up with the Edessa and see if they have reached the gravitational wave channel. Jia Yan silently withdrew his gaze and quickly headed towards the direction where the Edessa and other fleets were flying away. Inside the Edessa flying ahead, a group of Jia Yan's subordinates were all in deep despair. It's been so long and you haven't come back yet. Could it be that you really can't come back? He must have a way to escape. What we have to worry about is ourselves. When the God Emperors see that they are unable to capture you, they might come back to capture us. Yes, we are faster, but we must also consider whether these God Emperor battleships have any unique acceleration plans. Even if Luo Longxi, Tian Niaolang, and other subordinates tried their best not to think about whether Jia Yan had been killed, similar thoughts kept popping up in their hearts. Even though Jia Yan is powerful, the target this time is a top divine emperor who is almost as strong as him, or in other words, every one of them is stronger than Jia Yan in terms of pure strength level. Such a terrifying battle, even if Master Jia Yan is probably impossible to deal with, right? All his subordinates do not doubt Jia Yan's strength, but even if Jia Yan's strength is strong, there will always be a limit. The last time he dealt with the three top God Emperors, it was already a bit difficult. In dealing with three ordinary God Emperors before, one of them escaped. Although this can also show that Jia Yan's progress is very fast, this time, there are more than 30 top-level God Emperors, and the number is instantly higher than before. It was more than 10 times more. Under such circumstances, how could Jia Yan continue to win? Being able to escape is the best outcome they can think of. The speed of the Edessa we are riding on is slow even in the subspace. If the God Emperors behind can't find you, they will definitely come back. Fortunately, we are almost close to the so-called gravity. There is a place called the Wave Passage. We will study it when we get there later. If we can enter it, then we will leave together when the adults arrive. Although there are definitely variables in this, there is only one thing that cannot be changed, and that is waiting for the adults. Even if we have to die in the process, we cannot go against this idea. Do you understand? Knew. Several of Jia Yan's subordinates knew that their wealth and lives were completely tied to Jia Yan, so they were looking forward to Jia Yan's return. At this moment, they even made a decision that if Jia Yan did not return, they made the decision not to send out any troops. But just when they were about to reach the so-called gravitational wave channel, an extremely huge crack, accompanied by a shocking sense of power, appeared in front of the fleets and the Aditha. There was an extremely huge energy reaction. This is enemy. Be prepared for battle. They may not be able to catch up to Lord Jia Yan, so they will come to kill us. A group of Jia Yan's subordinates, as well as Luo Longxi's parents and other subordinates who had just joined Jia Yan, all felt a little frightened by the sudden appearance of shocking power, and all of them were prepared with greatly changed expressions. When they all thought that a bloody battle was inevitable and most of the people would die, or even all of them would be killed. In that space, someone stepped out. They wanted to see it, but they didn't dare to really think that it would be the front step of that adult. Jia? Master Jia Yan. How could it be Master Jia Yan? Where are the other God Emperors? Were they led to other places by Master? That's not right. Even if your excellency can lure them away, it will definitely not be so fast. Not long after the confrontation, we have not even approached the gravitational wave land here, and your excellency has lured them away. It's too fast. You have to remember that these are a group of top-notch god emperors. Several subordinates couldn't even believe that Jia Yan had lured away a group of god emperor creatures so quickly. Let's go. Jia Yan looked around at his subordinates and battleships, and said this calmly. Sir, I wonder where those divine emperors are. Finally, Lawrence couldn't help but asked. You must know that among the creatures present, there are her parents, her friends, etc., so she is most concerned about the whereabouts of those top god emperors who may endanger the lives of her parents and friends. She only hoped that Jia Yan had really led them far away, but considering how long Jia Yan had been separated from them, it was unlikely. How far could he lead them in such a short time? Jia Yan turned around lightly and hummed slightly. They have all been wiped out by me. Okay, don't say much. I can feel that there seems to be a more terrifying force coming. Let's leave quickly. Total annihilation. Sir, are you saying that he wiped out all those god emperors? More than 30 god emperors, and they are not ordinary god emperors, they are god emperors who have reached the top level in this great realm of gods. Are they all wiped out by adults? This is impossible, right? A group of subordinates were startled at first by Jia Yan's words, and then even the star-level subordinates who believed in Jia Yan the most felt unconvinced for a while. After all, what Jia Yan said was really unacceptable to others. No matter how powerful Jia Yan is, he is just a being who has just reached the lower level of stellar level. Facing a group of veteran God Emperor top-level creatures, even if he is 1 against 3, how can he fight against 30 of them? You must know that this is equivalent to 30 energy levels of creatures that exist like Jia Yan. Even if Jia Yan can kill them one by one, is he powerful enough? If you leave it there for Master Jia Yan to kill, it is impossible to kill them all in such a short time. This time, even Jia Yan's subordinates didn't quite believe Jia Yan's words. But since Mr. Jia Yan said this, then even if these God Emperor beings are not dead, they are definitely in trouble, and they will definitely not chase them so soon. You heard what the adults said, let's leave quickly. Just as the Aditya, Rolantha's relatives, and other biological armies continued to move towards the gravitational wave channel. Far away in the huge galaxy in the center of the divine realm. Huh? Why do I feel a little uncomfortable? Could it be that the God Emperors I sent some time ago had an accident? Impossible. Except for existences such as the God Emperor, this kind of team may pose a threat to them. Other God Emperors are absolutely impossible to pose any threat to them. Even the top geniuses in other systems are there can be no harm to them. Then Jia Yan is even more impossible. It's not that he doesn't have this potential, it's just that he has just been promoted to the lower level of the star. It is impossible for him to cause such heavy casualties to a group of God Emperors with such strength. But why do I always feel so worried? That's all, I'd better go over and see for myself. In this galaxy, a terrifying creature that was tens of kilometers in size silently opened its eyes. Not long after, in this starry sky, one after another shocking news was conveyed, and even other God Emperor level beings learned of this news. Are you crazy? You actually want to take action yourself? That's right, we turned a blind eye to your previous actions, but this time you actually want to take action personally. Do you have to know how huge such an action is to our spiritual realm? Stop it now. Your actions are no longer solely your own business. Huge waves of brainwave power surged from other parts of the galaxy in the center. But the behemoth didn't agree. You old immortals, your policy of action is too conservative. I can't do whatever I want. In our own divine realm, the strongest people in our divine realm can't act freely. This is too much. It's enough. And Jia Yan, you haven't seen how big a threat he is. It's extremely pedantic. Anyway, I have to go and see for myself this time, otherwise I won't be able to sleep or eat well. The huge blood-red creature did not lower its head at all, but emitted waves that exceeded the surging power, directly scattering their brainwave power. Seeing that the God Emperor existed and was so determined, all the terrifying brainwave powers that came were silent for a while and then stopped making any sound. Haha, I know that you are also a little worried about that evolved beast. Although it will take at least tens or hundreds of years to reach our level of strength, for threats that can endanger our spiritual realm, isn't it better to eliminate them as soon as possible? The astonishing God Emperor suddenly used its ability to move quickly, stepped out of the universe, and used some method that didn't even know the principle to suddenly enter an unknown space. Then, his figure disappeared very quickly. And in this galaxy, looking for the book garden, a stream of celebratory music and dancing creatures are all making a big splash. His Majesty the God Emperor personally marches, and the world is happy. His Majesty the God Emperor personally dispatches, there is nothing that cannot be done. In my lifetime, I can actually see His Majesty the God Emperor's actions. I want to leave this image to future generations. All the biological inhabitants felt that the movements and travels of this shocking creature were like a grand event. After all, there are only 5 or 6 divine emperors in this vast divine realm. This is because there are so many strong men in the divine realm. In the outside world, there are only 1 or 2 galaxy-level ones in such a large star realm. Existence is overwhelming. Therefore, it is an earth-shattering thing for such a being to take action. The news of the God Emperor's expedition quickly spread throughout the entire divine realm. This has happened an unknown number of years later. For the great realm of gods, the dispatch of a God Emperor is earth-shattering, and the impact is not just as simple as hearing a little bit of news. It may even affect in all aspects, such as military, economic, humanistic, and even just this news. The divine realm may start a war with other proximal star realms. Of course, it's not that time yet. This shocking God Emperor, in his rapid movement, is even sure that he will rush back to the central galaxy before the news causes too many changes. The harm of this impact can be reduced to a minimum. It's all caused by you, Jia Yan. Since I'm the commander of the expedition, you won't just die. I am quite interested in the so-called evolved beasts and the system you are studying. Maybe this is our God Emperor who has no path, and there may be opportunities to go further. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1563. This God Emperor has long been interested in the creature Jia Yan. Although most people still want to kill this so-called evolutionary beast clan, he does not hide that he is interested in some of Jia Yan's characteristics. You need to understand the reasons, and then maybe you can learn from them. After all, the Evolution Beast clan has such amazing combat abilities and talents. As long as you are a strong person, there is nothing you don't want to study. Therefore, he himself has always wanted to find Jia Yan, but it is not all because of his strong loyalty to this great realm of gods. Haha, this little friend of the evolved beast, if you go by external information, he is really a super genius. I have lived for so long, and even with the current God Emperor level of strength, I have never seen such a genius. So it is necessary to study him. In this universe, wouldn't it be too shameless for such a race to appear? Other creatures do not have his talent, but every time an evolved beast appears, it will be able to become for a strong man who stands tall and strong. This is too much. This kind of creature should be studied and investigated by other creatures. I am not doing this for my own selfishness, but for the stability and fairness of this starry sky. The God Emperor was flying in the starry sky, and deep in his heart, he found a valid reason for his actions. Of course, everything has pros and cons, so bad people can always find reasons to comfort themselves, or fallacies. Buzz. This shocking God Emperor exists in a space, and without thinking about anything else, he rushes into a space filled with light. At the same time, in another distant place, there were also a large number of battleships or strong men rushing into a similar space. This space is the place where Jia Yan discovered the gravitational waves before. However, the gravitational wave land here looks calmer and less harmful than the gravitational waves Jia Yan discovered before. Moreover, when Jia Yan traveled through space in the gravitational wave system, he was still very weak. Now that his strength has reached the almost heaven-defying galaxy level, he can deal with the gravitational wave system under such circumstances. Greater endurance. It's not just him, because gravitational waves don't require so much talent to enter, so every strong person present, or even weaker ordinary creatures with the help of scientific instruments, can quickly enter the gravitational wave. Within the wave channel. The gravitational wave channel they entered is a relatively stable and exposed channel. For outside creatures, and even for Jia Yan, under normal circumstances, it is difficult to find a gravitational wave system. Even if some scientific instruments are used, it is difficult to break gravitational waves in the universe system, and then enter into high-speed motion. Jia Yan used to move through the gravitational wave system, many of which were due to luck and strength. Under normal circumstances, even he was unwilling to enter it. But it's different when there are mature gravitational wave channels. Such channels are generally man-made. Not only are there few dangers in them, but they are also extremely stable, just like building a highway on the Earth in the gravitational wave channel system. Although the price is not small, it is still a very popular method of high-speed movement. Hurry in, otherwise there may be danger later. In the starry sky, one by one, the venerable level beings were giving quick instructions to the warships and ordinary creatures in the outside world. For ordinary creatures, not to mention knowing the outcome of the previous battle, some of them did not even know that the ones who attacked them just now would be a group of God Emperor level beings, so they were not so frightened. Maybe this is ignorance is bliss. Our spacecraft has not tested various tests to enter the gravitational wave channel. You might die if you enter. Do you want to go in? If not, give way to me. Some warships and spaceships were unwilling to enter the passage easily, but those behind wanted to enter, so conflicts broke out. The battleships and spaceships were all creatures in Luo Longxi's hometown. Originally, they were all relatively close, or had some contact with each other, but now they all had bad tempers after the war broke out. That's good. If you don't want to come in, forget it. If you want to go back for a checkup, just go back. But we can't wait any longer. At the entrance of the gravitational wave channel, there is a group of Jia Yan subordinates maintaining order. At this time, they were all solving problems for Jia Yan, and of course they were more helping Luo Longxi and maintaining order. A group of divine beings spoke, even behind them. There is a leader who has definitely reached the level of a god emperor sitting in charge. None of the ordinary creatures in this group of quarrels dared to speak anymore. Those who wanted to leave left silently, but most of them still failed to detect anything. If you get tested, you might die if you go back, so you might as well give it a try. In fact, ordinary warships can enter this gravitational wave. After all, it is like a highway, a channel made for the public or relatively high-end organisms to use. Ordinary warships cannot enter, so there is no need to talk about it at all. Take advantage of. Therefore, as warships and spaceships entered one after another, no accidents occurred. The gravitational wave channel in this area looks like a huge bright crack. To put it bluntly, the gravitational wave system is something that appears due to the gravitational fluctuations caused by massive stars or other things in the universe. Generally speaking, they will be like water ripples, slowly dispersing in the surroundings in the ripple-like movement of energy. And because of the peculiarity of this gravitational wave system, it will last for a relatively long time without much exhaustion, so gravitational wave navigation in the universe is not something difficult to imagine. Sir, the original guard of this gravitational wave channel was killed by us, but he seemed to have a long-distance communication device. I'm afraid they will call in reinforcements. It's okay. Even if reinforcements are coming now, I don't know how long it will take to arrive. I have seen this gravitational wave. Even if it belongs to the ultra-high-speed gravitational wave system, if you want to accelerate in it, except for apart from the existence of the God Emperor, there are almost no other creatures that can accelerate inside. So we don't have to worry about other creatures coming, we just need to leave quickly before then. Yes, my lord has a sharp eye, but I am too worried. Where did you learn this mess, haha? With a laugh and curse, Jia Yan told the heavenly cowherd who came to report to get out of here. Since Jia Yan's strength has become stronger and stronger, these guys have slowly embarked on the path of trying to impress others. After all, on the normal road, it is difficult for them to help Jia Yan's combat effectiveness. Of course, if they practice hard and break through to the primary level of a star quickly, then there is a certain possibility that they can help Jia Yan to a certain extent. Jia Yan's strength is only that of a lower level star. Even though he has fought so many divine emperor creatures, his strength is that of a lower level star. There will be no change until he reaches the galaxy level, so this group of as long as the subordinates have cultivated to around the middle level of the star, coupled with the bonus of the dual system, and their strength joins forces, there may be a slight possibility that before Jia Yan reaches the galaxy level, they can join forces with Jia Yan. A God Emperor exists to fight, and it is not an ordinary God Emperor, but a God Emperor who has reached the top level. With such strength, there is a slight possibility that he can help Jia Yan. And it's not impossible. As long as they work harder, every breakthrough is within sight. The pressure in my heart is still so great, and the closer I come to this gravitational wave channel, the more terrifying this feeling of pressure becomes. God Emperor. Jia Yan silently observed the gravitational wave channel in front of him. His opening is 100 kilometers wide, and ordinary battleships can only enter it one at a time. Because if there are too many, the surrounding warships will come to the edge of the gravitational wave channel. The gravitational waves there are unstable, and the ship may be destroyed and people killed. The presence of the God Emperor that Jia Yan felt became stronger the closer he got to the gravitational wave area. Through this feeling, he further analyzed that the coming existence of the God Emperor was probably coming through gravitational waves. The gravitational wave channel has a relatively high-level purpose in this realm of gods. It is impossible for ordinary creatures to use it, but it can definitely be used by a God Emperor. So if there is a God Emperor who comes to hunt me down, then it should be very simple to use gravitational waves. According to my observation, the speed of movement in this gravitational wave channel should not be too fast. If he comes, not necessarily, he is the God Emperor after all, equivalent to an outside galaxy level existence. I can't guess what abilities he has. So there is no guarantee whether he will come quickly. Jia Yan had no idea how soon the terrifying pressure creature would appear. Only the God Emperor could bring him terrible pressure at an extremely far distance, and the God Emperor's arrival felt very fast, and perhaps the possibility of his arrival was very fast. Quick! Jia Yan silently looked at the creatures around him. Although he didn't say anything, the anxiety in his heart was faintly expressed through the pressure of his huge power, which made all the creatures in the group feel a little awe, as if he was coming from somewhere. The existence of the monster put pressure on Jia Yan, but Jia Yan seemed to transfer this pressure to these creatures. So their movements immediately sped up. No, it's very wrong. The more Jia Yan felt the pressure, the more he felt that the speed of its arrival was far beyond his imagination. This kind of feeling is possible after reaching a very powerful existence. Although it is difficult for most galaxy level or God Emperor level to have such general ability of perception, Jia Yan's power of perception has always been it is relatively powerful. What's more, after he learned the Tao in another world, he got closer to the universe, so some of his mysterious perceptions gradually became more powerful, which led to such a heaven-defying crisis. Perception is not a very strange thing. He came. Jia Yan's expression suddenly changed. You guys follow my path from behind. I'll take the first step. There may be an extremely terrifying existence coming later. You don't have to be afraid. He should be targeting me and won't cause you any trouble. You can tell me my location. Jia Yan said this to Luo Longxi and other subordinates. Then he ignored Luo Longxi and the others' astonishment and jumped directly into the gravitational wave. For Jia Yan, his strength is definitely not enough to match the previous God Emperor, but with the improvement in previous battles, plus his several powerful combat skills, and his own seventh-dimensional ability in subspace, I think it is really possible to escape the attack of a God Emperor. But if you can't meet, it's better not to meet. Call. Jia Yan crashed directly into the gravitational wave. And just after he entered the gravitational wave channel, he suddenly felt that the shocking pressure seemed to become even greater instantly. It came too fast. What method was used? Jia Yan felt that the approaching object with huge pressure should be hundreds of light years away and arrived in an instant. This speed was almost unimaginable to Jia Yan. He was also in the gravitational wave channel, and moving quickly. And he uses his own positive and negative power of Onmyoto. The instant flight made Jia Yan completely surpass his previous speed. Coupled with the positive and negative impact of the power of Yin and Yang Dao, the burst of speed was simply the fastest speed that Jia Yan himself had ever experienced. But at such a speed, it was still not enough to deal with the terrifying creature coming from behind. When Jia Yan was flying quickly, the creatures coming from behind rushed towards him at a faster speed than him. Even Jia Yan's speed may not be even a few hundredth of his. After all, people can fly hundreds of light years very quickly using their bodies or other tools. Even the Edissa cannot do this. So Jia Yan definitely can't outrun others. But fortunately, the distance between the two sides is already far. Even if Jia Yan feels the pressure getting bigger and bigger, he is not a too slow creature in the gravitational wave system. Even if gravitational waves have not been seen for him for too long, after entering, the strong will be the strong. Jia Yan's strength has reached a level that no God Emperor can defeat. Then his speed performance can reach that of a God Emperor who is between the God Emperor and the God Emperor. Exists. This Jia Yan is actually on the run. In the distance, I don't know how many light years later, the terrifying giant came, and my heart was shocked. Beings that have reached the galaxy level generally have a certain ability to perceive, just like the ability that Jia Yan is showing now. This being also has similar abilities, but he doesn't think Jia Yan also has such abilities. But at this moment, he vaguely felt that Jia Yan, who was hundreds of light years away, seemed to have started to escape.